The other party used a unique skill as soon as he came up, and his strength was stronger than Long Dao. Perhaps there was no suspense in this battle. Brother Lin. Luo Luo was worried again. She also felt that Lin Xian was just lucky before. Luo Xiao shook his head. Sister, ignore him. This guy has offended too many people. Today, he won't be able to leave alive. Go to hell. On the arena, Gue Yan's figure flashed, and his long spear pierced over like a dragon. In an instant, it was in front of Lin Xian, stabbing toward Lin Xian's heart. Lin Xian didn't dodge at all. Great, this kid can't keep up with my speed. Gue Yan sneered. Boom. A deafening sound rang out. Did he hit? Gu Feng and the others also stood up. They shook their heads. As expected, he was just lucky last time. This time, in a real battle, he wasn't strong enough. Lung Dao's death was too unjust. If he hadn't been careless, he wouldn't have died. Hanjiu also sighed. At this moment, a terrified voice came from the front. This was impossible. It was Gue Yan. What was going on? Luo Zhao's expression also changed, and he looked over. They saw Gue Yan's body continuously retreating, as if he had seen a ghost. What happened? Gue Yan was completely dazed. That attack just now was a sure kill. However, he realized that his long spear had only hit his opponent's body. That was all. It hadn't pierced through at all. In fact, it hadn't even caused a crack. He hadn't broken his opponent's defense. Chapter 57:43. Lin Xian used his physique to block this fatal blow. His left hand reached out and grabbed the flaming spear. Then, he shook it forcefully. There was a boom. The flaming spear broke into two halves. Gue Yan's right hand was shattered by this force, turning into a bloody mist. His entire body also continuously retreated. Lin Xian's figure swayed. He came in front of the other party and punched out. Heaven-defying fist. No. Gue Yan was terrified and wanted to escape. However, his body had just turned half a circle when he was hit by this punch. Puff. A rain of blood fell from the sky. Gue Yan turned into a bloody mist. His soul was also torn apart. He was dead. The surrounding geniuses were stunned. With just one punch, a terrifying expert, Gue Yan, died just like that? Everyone was stunned. Hanjia's beautiful smile became ugly. Gu Feng also sucked in a breath of cold air. What a terrifying physique. As for Luo Xiao, his body trembled. How could it be like this? This was the ant that he had looked down on before. Although his strength was strong, he was still a little weaker than Gue Yan. But now, the other party had killed Gue Yan with one punch. Didn't this mean that if the other party wanted to kill him, it would be a matter of a finger? He had challenged the other party time and time again, but he was still alive. He felt incomparably terrified. How could it be like this? Luo Xiao was completely stunned. Who was he? Luo Luo was also excited, waving her small fists. She said, Brother, did you see that? Lin Gongzi was really powerful. Powerful. Luo Xiao went crazy. This was no longer something that could be described as powerful. This was defying the heavens. Too weak. Lin Xian waved his sleeve, and the rain of blood was blown away. Then, his gaze fixed on Gu Feng. I heard that your physique is also incomparably powerful. I don't know how you compare to me. Come and fight. Gu Feng was stared at as if he was being stared at by an ancient demon. His hair stood on end. Don't go too far, he shouted coldly. Lin Xian said, Don't you dare? I can let you use one hand. He placed his left hand behind his back. Damn it, they've gone too far. Gu Feng roared and soared into the sky. They charged towards Lin Xian. The red bone seemed to have turned into an ancient mountain, crushing down. His physique was indeed incomparably strong. Even a saint artifact could not break it. He didn't believe that the other party could contend against him. Lin Xian unleashed his divine body and fought against it. With a boom, the two collided. Gu Feng was shaken to the point that his qi and blood were in turmoil. Cracks appeared on his bones. What a strong physique. Gu Feng was completely stunned. In the clash, he was at a disadvantage. Lin Xian was also surprised. Your physique is indeed very strong. You're an exception, being able to withstand one of my punches without dying. Although this was a compliment, Gu Gufeng found it extremely strange when he heard it. Did he need others to praise him? Damn it. He raised his hands high on his body, and his bones quickly erupted and condensed. They formed a shield and covered his left hand. The bones of his right hand turned into a blood sword. Kill. He entered battle mode. The people of the Bone Cave might only be from the Bone Forest, but their bones were extremely magical. They could transform into any state. At this moment, after entering battle mode, their combat strength increased even more. Gu Feng transformed into a war god shield and kept dancing to defend. The blood sword in his right hand attacked continuously. White Bone Divine Sword. This was Gu Feng's famous consummate skill. Back then, he had once split a 7-crown king with one sword. That blood slaughter shield was even more terrifying. It was said that it could perfectly withstand the attacks of 2 7-crown kings. In his current state, he should be able to withstand it. The surrounding experts were discussing. Lin Xian looked at this scene and lightly slapped his palm. The 9 Suns' divine palm, a palm of light, descended from the sky. With a boom, the blood slaughter shield cracked. Half of Gu Feng's body was smashed into pieces, and he let out a miserable howl. Was he still human? The surrounding people went crazy. Gu Feng was so powerful, yet he was defeated so easily by the other party? I admit defeat. Half of Gu Feng's body was shattered as he shouted in fear. He didn't dare to continue fighting. If he continued fighting, he would definitely die. Gue Yin was a good example for him. He didn't want to be destroyed. Lin Xian shook his head. Get lost. You're too weak. Who else? His gaze fell on the bloodthirsty princess and Hanjiu. The 2 fairies were pale and took 2 steps back. They were so scared that they lowered their heads like kittens. None of them could fight. Lin Xian stood with his hands behind his back, looking down at the world. But at this moment, he looked at Luo Xiao and said, "Aren't you going to come up and try?" Luo Xiao was going crazy. What kind of joke was this? His expression turned incomparably ugly. He wouldn't dare to go up and fight with the other party even if he had 100 guts. He gritted his teeth and said, "Sister, who is this kid?" Luo said, "Lin Gongzi is from the outside world." "What exactly is he?" "I don't know either." "Brother, he's very powerful, right?" Luo Xiao was about to cry. He didn't know how to answer. Lin Xian said, "Now you know who is the dragon? Who is the snake?" The entire place was silent. No one dared to resist. Even the people outside the valley were stunned. They didn't expect such a terrifying expert to come this time. This was a dark horse, a new force to be reckoned with. Who was he? All kinds of questions about Lin Xian. They all appeared. Everyone was terrified. However, there was one person who was angry, and that was the underworld child. His face darkened. How arrogant, how insolent. The other party actually said that everyone present was trash, and that none of them could fight. Didn't that mean that he was included as well? As the emperor's son, he was above everyone. He didn't even spare Gue Yin and Gu Feng a glance. Originally, he thought that he would let these people fight first. Then, he would sweep in all directions and make these prodigies submit. But now, someone had ruined his plan. He even killed a few prodigies. His face was ugly, and anger burned. How arrogant! How dare you say that there's no one who can fight? Are you looking down on me, the crown prince? A cold voice came from the sky. Everyone looked up at the ship of the underworld. They exclaimed, "It's the underworld child. He's angry." Oh heavens! Is the underworld child going to make a move? A light appeared in the eyes of Gu Feng and the others. They all had hope. If the underworld child made a move, this person would definitely die. Especially Gu Feng, whose expression was ferocious. "Make your move, your highness," he shouted secretly. Luo Zhao's expression also changed. He gritted his teeth and said, "Kid, lower your head and admit defeat. You're no match for the underworld child." He was also a member of the underworld temple. He naturally knew how terrifying the underworld child was. All of them combined were no match for the underworld child. The emperor's bloodline was really too terrifying. This time, Luo was also worried. The people outside the valley were all ferocious. For example, the Ghost Flame clan was even more ferocious. The underworld child would make a move and kill him. That's right. Make him suffer a fate worse than death. Send him to the 18th level of hell. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. Oh, you're going to make a move on me? Fine. Let me see you, the Emperor's son. How many moves can you block? Chapter 57:44. Everyone in the valley was stunned when they heard Lin Xian's words. This guy was too arrogant. He didn't even put his highness in his eyes. He was dead meat. His highness wasn't someone he could provoke. Do you think you can defeat us? Do you think you can defeat his highness? You're too reckless. Kid, do you know how long it's been since someone dared to challenge me? Do you know the people who challenged me before? What happened to them? Underworld Child was also angry. He took a step forward and descended from the sky. Endless nether chi spread out from his body, forming a terrifying battle spear. He descended like the god of the underworld. Boom! A terrifying force spread out from under his feet, sweeping through the entire valley. Immediately, everyone's blood boiled. What a terrifying aura! Fairy Han Jia's expression changed. Princess Bloodthirsty's pupils also constricted. This is his highness, right? He's really too strong. How laughable. I actually wanted to challenge him before. Just this aura alone is enough to make me unable to resist. Gu Feng's expression was even more ferocious. Half of his broken body had already recovered. At this moment, his eyes were filled with killing intent. Great, with his highness making a move, this kid will definitely die. Now, do you still think you're my match? The Crown Prince looked down at Lin Xian from above. His eyes were filled with confidence. Although I'm only the 6th Crown King now, I can even challenge the 8th Crown King. I'm far from being comparable to you. Kneel down and submit to me. Become my strongest warrior, and I can spare your life. Underworld Child was very confident. The way he saw it, Lin Xian would definitely not reject the chance to live. Big Brother Lin. This time, Luo was completely stunned. That was because she could feel how terrifying it was this time. Facing such a terrifying scene, Lin Xian's expression was incomparably calm. He said, "Do you think you can scare me with this aura? You're too naive. I think you've never been out of hell. You're really a frog at the bottom of a well. Do you know how many geniuses there are outside hell? Those people are not weaker than you. In fact, some of them have completely surpassed you. He was an existence that you could only look up to for your entire life. However, they were still defeated by me. Do you think you can challenge me? You are no match for me." Everyone was dumbfounded. Underworld Child also revealed a ferocious expression. Interesting. It's been a long time since I met someone as arrogant as you. Tell me your name. I don't kill nameless people. Remember, my name is Lin Wudi. I'm the nightmare of your life. I'm the person you'll always look up to. After Lin Xian finished speaking, he took a step forward. A terrifying power erupted from his body and shot up into the sky. With a boom, the entire valley was split into pieces by the sword chi. How could this be? Fairy Han Jia's pupils shrank as she quickly dodged. The Blood Drinker Princess was surrounded by the terrifying Blood Drinker sword chi. However, he was still sent flying and spat out a mouthful of blood. Gu Feng was even more miserable. He was pierced by a beam of sword chi. Half of his body was chopped off again. It was the same for the others. They were all shocked. Only Luo's place was safe and sound. Luo Zhao's body trembled as he knelt on the ground with a plop. He knew that he wasn't injured because of Luo. Lin Xian deliberately didn't attack this place. If he had attacked, he would have died without a doubt, because he couldn't block it at all. It was too terrifying. Was this the other party's power? A casual beam of sword chi from the other party's body was enough to kill them. Then how terrifying was the other party's true strength? 8 Crown King? He didn't dare to think about it anymore. This was just a 6 Crown King. Could it be that the other party's ability to fight above his level was even greater than Underworld Child's? Who on earth was he? How could he be so powerful? Princess Bloodthirsty looked terrified. Gu Feng was even more crazy. Impossible? How could there be such a terrifying person in the world? Who was he? He was an old monster. Yes, that's right. He must be an old monster who had been sleeping for countless years. Don't try to fool me. Lin Xian's body was surrounded by sword chi like a sword god. He looked up and said, Do you think you can still look down on me now? You're no match for me at all." After saying that, Lin Xian slashed out with his sword. Vast sword chi swept across the universe. The boat of the underworld also flew away. In the distance, the two old men on the boat shouted, "Your Highness, be careful." They didn't expect Lin Xian to be able to burst out with such terrifying power. Underworld Child's pupils constricted. The other party's power had made his blood boil just now. However, he was completely furious. As the Crown Prince, he had the strongest bloodline and the strongest unique skill. He wouldn't allow anyone to challenge him. Today, no matter how strong the other party was, he was going to kill the other party. The spear of the underworld. In his hand, the void split open, and a long black spear appeared. He held it in his hand and then stabbed it over. It collided with the sword chi, and an earth-shattering sound rang out. The surrounding void was directly torn apart. An earth-shattering sound rang out, and flames danced in the air. The sword chi disappeared. However, Underworld Child was knocked back, and the void shattered. His entire arm was numb. What a sharp sword chi! He had never seen this in his life. Buzz! Lin Xian slashed out with his sword again. This time, the sword chi was even more terrifying. The Qinkuan sword transformed into a mountain. The sword transformed into a mountain of swordsmanship that came crashing down, bending the spear of the underworld. Underworld Child only felt the immense pressure. The armor on his body was about to crack. "Damn it, get lost!" He roared angrily at the sky, fury of the underworld god. His bloodline erupted, and a huge phantom appeared. It stood indomitable and directly blasted away the sword chi with a punch. Underworld Child's face turned pale. However, before he could react, the second sword strike came. The Qinkuan sword transformed into water. This sword chi transformed into endless seawater that swept in all directions. Lin Xian's Qinkuan sword technique was self-created. Together with the great dragon sword soul, it could transform into anything. At the same time, he also combined divine abilities and immortal spells. For example, this sword transformation was formed by the sky water sword technique that he had comprehended before. With a slash of the sword, the entire sky turned into seawater and a huge vortex condensed, using softness to overcome strength and sweeping everything. As expected, Underworld Child was entangled by this force and seemed to be unable to escape. His legs were actually shattered by this strangling force, and he let out a miserable cry. "Ah!" He roared at the sky, his black hair fluttering. The Underworld Divine Ability, Underworld God Bell. A terrifying black bell appeared and enveloped him, blocking the terrifying whirlpool of seawater. At the same time, he formed a hand seal with his palm, and a terrifying vibration came from the Underworld God Bell. This was the sound of death, enough to take away all life. "Oh no! Retreat!" Bloodthirsty Princess and the others saw this scene and frantically retreated. They all retreated from the valley. Lin Xian bore the brunt of the impact. The endless aura of death hit his body, making a deafening sound. Lin Xian roared at the sky. Divine body illuminates heaven and earth. The phantom of 9 suns appeared on his body, surrounding everything to block the sound. Buzz! At this critical moment, demonic chi rolled behind him, and a demonic shadow appeared. At the same time, a black demonic zither appeared in front of him. He wanted to play the demonic tune. Chapter 57:45. The demonic shadow had just moved. Lin Xian snorted coldly. "You don't have to come out." He formed a seal with his palm and closed the shadow. In the illusory demon scripture, the demonic shadow turned into clouds and dissipated. As for Lin Xian, an extremely terrifying radiance erupted from his eyes. Without the inheritance of the demon emperor, he couldn't resist it. Was this a joke? The demonic shadow was so strange. He wouldn't let it continue to be arrogant. This time, Lin Xian used his self-created technique. Against the Heavens technique, Immortal technique, Qinkuan sword song, Wild Dragon roar. He activated the Dharma, an endless sword chi condensed in front of him. Lin Xian gently played the zither, and the sword aura emitted a sword hum. At the same time, 9 wild dragons condensed. They looked up to the sky and let out the angriest roars they had ever heard. These sounds were enough to tear the world apart. The entire valley shattered again. The boundless sky cracked open, blocking the sound of death. Chinku and Sword Song, Dragon Dance in the 9 heavens. After the 9 wild dragons shattered the sound of death, they rushed into the sky and attacked the god of Hell Bel. Then, they danced wildly, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Dragon claws, dragon scales, dragon tails, dragon heads, all kinds of attacks. They all blasted on the god of Hell Bel, making earth-shattering sounds. The god of Hell Bel shook violently, and the underworld child's blood boiled inside. Finally, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Not good. On the ship of the underworld, the 2 elders saw this scene and whispered, "Your Highness, be careful." They were stunned. They didn't expect the enemy to be so powerful. The underworld child had used the god of Hell Bel, but he still couldn't block it. Crack. There was a shattering sound, and cracks appeared on the god of Hell Bel. The underworld child also retreated. His body was torn apart by the dragon claws, and his bones were exposed. He retreated to a distance, and his face was extremely ugly. Lin Xian, like a sword god, had a cold expression. He looked at the other party and said, "I told you, you are no match for me. What other divine powers do you have?" The underworld child's face became extremely ferocious. He gritted his teeth and used the god of underworld's inheritance to restore his body. At the same time, he shouted angrily, "You used an immortal technique. Are you from the deity ground?" Once those words were spoken, the people in the distance were also astonished. The pupils of the bloodthirsty princess and the others contracted. A deity ground? To think that the other party actually came from that mysterious place. Although they were from hell, they knew very well that hell was different. A mysterious land had appeared in the universe, and it was none other than the celestial land. The arrival of the deity ground had caused the entire universe to undergo earth-shaking changes. Hell was also recovering its power and had reached a new peak. It was as if they had returned to the ancient golden age. In fact, they had even considered leaving hell one day and going to the celestial land to explore. Let's see what kind of mysterious characters there are. However, the people of the celestial land had already arrived before they could even make their way there. So what if it was an immortal technique? My divine ability will definitely not lose to yours. I'm the son of Hades' emperor, and I have peerless divine abilities. Today, I'll show you. This was the power of the netherworld monarch's divine ability. The underworld prince uttered a furious roar as he unleashed the full potential of his bloodline. At that moment, crimson runes actually appeared on his body. The heavenly melody of the great Tao was roaring there. The bloodline of a great emperor was simply too powerful. At this moment, the underworld prince's battle prowess could still increase. The broken underworld god armor on his body reformed again. At the same time, the underworld god bell appeared behind him. Although there were cracks on it, its power was still extremely terrifying. The underworld prince was not done yet. He performed another peerless divine ability. His left hand suddenly enlarged as if it had turned into a mountain. His arm also lengthened to a few hundred meters long, and it was covered with scales. A terrifying aura spread out. What is this? The surrounding people were all stunned when they saw this scene. Gufeng and the others were all dumbfounded. They had never seen such a terrifying thing before. Luo Xiao exclaimed, "This is spirit transformation. I heard that Hades' Emperor's inheritance is very terrifying. There is a peerless divine ability that can transform any part of the body into a peerless monster." They had only heard of it before, but they had never thought that it really existed and that the underworld prince had used it. On the ship of the underworld, the 2 old men also heaved a sigh of relief when they saw this scene. The white-haired old man sneered, "That person from the deity ground is dead meat." The black-haired old man also said, "That's right. No matter how strong an immortal spell is, it can't be compared to a divine ability. Let him see. Our hell's peerless divine ability." The underworld prince looked up to the sky and roared. His left hand had turned into a huge monster that kept rolling around. 4 limbs grew out of it, and a head with scales. Then, A monster appeared in the void and roared at the sky. This was really too strange. The underworld prince's left hand turned into a monster, and it was an extremely terrifying, peerless monster. That demonic beast was extremely terrifying. Lin Xian also narrowed his eyes and looked forward. He saw that the monster's eyes were shining with green light. Its head was like a wolf's, and its fangs were all over. However, there were also extremely terrifying scales on its body, and they were extremely black. They emitted the aura of death. The monster's claws were even more terrifying, and they shone with blood-red light. With a gentle wave, it shattered the void. Fairy Hanjiu gasped. She said, "Why do I feel that this monster looks so familiar, as if I've seen it before?" The bloodthirsty princess exclaimed, "Isn't this the underworld wolf god from the 18 levels of hell?" Hearing this, the others also remembered. The 18 levels of hell were extremely terrifying, and countless terrifying existences were suppressed there. Although they had never entered it before, it had been passed down for countless years after all. Some strong people had entered it and successfully came out alive. These strong people who came out wrote countless legends about what they saw inside. There were even some patterns that appeared. This underworld wolf god was one of them. The monster was suppressed in one of the 18 levels of hell. It was extremely terrifying. Many families even had portraits and scrolls of the monster, but they had never seen it with their own eyes. Now, the underworld prince had used a peerless divine ability to transform the underworld wolf god. It was incredible. The theurgy of the arch was indeed terrifying. Roar. The underworld wolf god was transformed, and it roared at the sky. The underworld prince also snorted coldly, "Kid, you made me use such a peerless divine ability. You can die in peace." Then, he waved his left hand, and the underworld wolf god rushed out, its four limbs dancing. The wolf head roared and launched a peerless attack. The entire valley was shattered. Everyone retreated again, their hair standing on end. Lin Xian's figure flickered, and sword light flashed under his feet. He dodged the attack. The underworld wolf god tore the original place into pieces. The underworld prince sneered, "It's useless, kid. You can't dodge it." Although the underworld wolf god was a monster, it was still a part of his body and was extremely agile. Coupled with his cooperation, it could be said that no one was a match for it. Sure enough, after the attack missed, the underworld wolf god instantly turned around. Its terrifying claws tore at the back. Lin Xian snorted coldly and waved his sword qi, colliding with the other party's claws. It made an earth-shattering sound. This time, the sword qi didn't completely shatter the other party's claws. One could imagine how terrifying the underworld wolf god was. Chapter 5746. Great, we've suppressed that kid. Now, it's time for that kid to die. Gu Feng and the others snickered. Luo, on the other hand, was in despair. Luo Xiao sighed. "This is what happens when you go against the emperors. No one can save you. Kid, do you see that? That's the difference between us. Die in despair." Underworld Child blocked the sword qi that filled the sky, and a confident smile appeared on his face. No matter how powerful your immortal spells are, they'll never be a match for divine powers. So, you can die now. He activated the underworld wolf deity and waved his arms. The beast covered the sky and the earth, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. With a furious roar, the sky shook and the earth shook. Even the stars in the sky were about to fall. Lin Xian snorted. "Is that so? So what if you have a peerless divine power? I'll let you have a taste of my peerless divine power." A cold light flashed in his eyes. The people around him went crazy when they heard that. What was this kid talking about? He was going to use a peerless divine power too? Was he kidding? He was from the deity ground. How could he have a peerless divine power? These people had never been to the celestial land, so they thought that the people in the celestial land used immortal spells. How would they know? Even in the deity ground, there were a few people who used divine powers. Not to mention, Lin Xian's divine power was even more terrifying. The divine fire seed between his brows shone brightly. Lin Xian stomped his foot and rushed over. A pair of dragon wings appeared on his back. They flapped gently and tore apart the storm. In an instant, he was in front of the underworld wolf deity and struck with his right hand. His right hand turned into a huge seal. A dragon head bared its fangs and brandished its claws. Boom! The dragon head and the underworld wolf deity collided with an earth-shattering sound. The space in the sky shattered. The underworld wolf deity was knocked back, and its light dimmed. How was that possible? Underworld Child exclaimed. He could feel the power of the divine fire on his opponent. No, it was clearly the power of immortal chi just now. How did it become the power of the divine fire? This kid actually knew a peerless divine power. He couldn't be a true divine power practitioner, right? Gu Feng and the others were stunned. They had never heard of anyone who knew immortal spells and divine abilities. It must be an illusion. Impossible? Lin Xian smiled. Then I'll beat you until you believe me. The right hand was easy, but the left hand was the Nine Suns' divine fist. The fist on his left hand turned into a terrifying sun and danced continuously. Attacking with both fists, no matter how strong the underworld wolf deity was, he was beaten back repeatedly. Its body was finally forced back. A series of explosions rang out. The great apocalypse took place between heaven and earth. The underworld child was also knocked back. The underworld wolf god was only his left hand. However, at this moment, it was being suppressed, and a crack had appeared on its surface. Lin Xian said, "Did you see that? In terms of supernatural power, you are not as good as me." Damn it, I don't believe it. Underworld Child was going crazy. Although I don't know, how did you use a peerless divine ability? However, my divine ability is not limited to this. On his left hand, blood suddenly gushed out from the cracked body of the underworld wolf god, releasing an extremely terrifying radiance. The Emperor's bloodline dyed the underworld wolf god's entire body, as if it was covered in a layer of blood-colored battle armor. In the next moment, the underworld wolf god roared into the sky. The red nomological laws on its body bloomed, as if they had turned into the power of an ancient demon beast. It actually became extremely powerful again. Kill. This time, its body became tens of thousands of meters long. Like a peerless divine beast, it rushed over crazily. What a reckless thing. Lin Xian snorted coldly, and an extremely terrifying light burst out from his eyes. Dragon scales appeared on his body. Dragon transformation. His entire body seemed to have turned into a dragon sword as he rushed over. The peerless sharpness cut through everything. Boom. Roar. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The storm swept through the sky and was pierced through. Endless black holes bobbed up and down. At the same time, the behemoth that was tens of thousands of meters long fell to the side of the valley. A thousand-layer storm was stirred up. In the dust, there were screams. The Emperor's blood dripped down. The underworld child clutched his broken arm, his entire body trembling in fear. How dare you hurt me? This voice made everyone go crazy. Was he injured? In the sky, the pupils of the two old men on the underworld ship shrank. Your Highness, they cried out in alarm, because they saw that the underworld child's left hand was directly cut off, and the underworld wolf god fell to the ground. How was this possible? The other party actually broke through the underworld emperor's peerless divine ability. They all went crazy. The bloodthirsty princess, Gu Feng, and the others were also dumbfounded after seeing this. They couldn't believe it. Luo Xiao was so scared that he knelt on the ground. The underworld child was defeated again, and he was even seriously injured. This was completely beyond his expectations. What was that punch just now? He saw the other party transform into a dragon sword and cut through heaven and earth with a sword. Could the other party also transform into a spirit? They didn't know. At this moment, everyone was stunned. Do you still think you're my match now? The dragon scales on Lin Xian's body disappeared, and he returned to normal. He took large strides forward. The broken underworld wolf god still wanted to fight back. However, Lin Xian directly transformed into a sword steel and suppressed it. The sword steel pierced through heaven and earth, piercing the other party and nailing it to the ground. The other party couldn't resist at all. Then, Lin Xian formed a circle with his hands, and a Taiji diagram appeared and floated above the underworld child's body. The Taiji diagram's yin and yang laws made the underworld child vomit blood. Did I lose? I actually lost. I can't accept it. The underworld child frantically resisted and hit the Taiji diagram. However, the Taiji diagram became more and more terrifying, and it firmly suppressed the underworld child. Lin Xian exerted force in his palm, and the Taiji diagram drooped down. The yin and yang sword qi pierced through the underworld child's body. The underworld child let out a miserable cry. No, stop. Damn brat, how dare you hurt my highness? Let him go. On the underworld boat, the two old men finally couldn't take it anymore. They quickly rushed down. They wanted to save their highness. They stretched out their underworld palms. The huge black palms blotted out the sky and covered the earth. It was extremely terrifying and vicious. Lin Xian sneered and used the 9-sun palm to resist. The golden palms pierced through heaven and earth. At the same time, the 6 paths of reincarnation in his eyes directly attacked the other party's soul. A rumbling sound rang out. The two old men held their heads and screamed. Blood dripped from their foreheads. Their souls were severely injured. It was too powerful. Not only did the other party block their attacks alone, but he also injured them. It was a soul attack just now. Not only did this brat know immortal spells, but he also knew divine powers. More importantly, a soul attack. It was also so terrifying. What kind of divine being was this? Who are you? The white-haired old man gritted his teeth and asked. The black-haired old man also said, Stop. What do you want? We can talk. There are countless treasures in our underworld god palace, and we have all kinds of cultivation techniques and inheritances. As long as you state your conditions, we will satisfy you. The underworld child stopped his wounds. His face was ferocious, but he didn't say a word. However, his eyes were burning with flames. As long as he had the chance, he wouldn't let the other party off. Lin Xian didn't make any requests. Instead, he stood with his hands behind his back. He asked indifferently, Are you convinced? Chapter 57:47. Underworld child was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. His opponent was slapping him in the face. Not only did he defeat him, but he also wanted to make him bow his head. He was so angry that his whole body trembled. His eyes went black and he fainted. Your Highness. The two elders were extremely anxious. However, they didn't dare to act rashly. That was because the shock that Lin Xian gave them was simply too great. Lin Xian snorted coldly. He opened his rinnegan and pierced into Underworld Child's soul. Underworld Child was awakened by the pain and screamed crazily. Lin Xian said, You're so weak that you can't even take this little blow? All right, I'll make my request now. Take me to see Emperor Ming. What? You want to see my father? Underworld Child was completely stunned. Even the two old men's pupils shrank. What exactly was the other party plotting? However, they breathed a sigh of relief. No matter what the other party was planning, as long as they saw Emperor Ming, it would all be in vain. In front of a martial monarch, there was nothing that could be done. So they said, That's easy. We'll take you there now. Lin Xian nodded and said, When I see Emperor Ming, I'll let him go. He sent out a dragon-shaped sword energy into Underworld Child's body. Underworld Child felt the sharpness in his body. As long as he resisted, the sword chi would destroy his martial arts foundation in an instant. He was so scared that his face turned pale and he clenched his fists. Damn kid, just you wait. When I see my father, I'll ask him to kill you. He roared in his heart. Lin Xian turned and said to Luo Luo in the distance, When you return to the family, tell the people of the Yellow Spring sect. If they dare to hurt you again, I'll make them wish they were dead. Brother Lin, Luo Luo shouted. Luo Xiao was even more shocked. The other party had done so much just to see Emperor Ming. That was too crazy. The other party had injured Underworld Child and wanted to see Emperor Ming. Didn't they know how to write the word death? Who could resist the wrath of the emperor? When the two elders saw Luo Xiao, they frowned. How could they not know her? Luo Xiao was a new core disciple. How could she be related to this person? Killing intent appeared in their eyes. However, he didn't make a move. Instead, he said, "Young master, please. We will take you to Hades." Lin Xian nodded. With a wave of his hand, he rose into the air with his name. They arrived at the ship of the underworld. In the next moment, the underworld ship danced about, tearing apart the void, disappearing without a trace. Did he leave? Gu Feng heaved a sigh of relief. As for Bloodthirsty Princess and the others, their expressions were grave. Who exactly was he? They did not know. However, this matter quickly spread. As a result, many people knew that an extremely terrifying expert had arrived in hell. On the underworld ship, everyone looked at Lin Xian as if they were facing a great enemy. They were afraid that he would suddenly attack. Lin Xian sat down cross-legged. He wasn't worried that these people would launch a sneak attack, because Netherchild's life was still in his hands. He closed his eyes and rested to recover his strength. Let's take a look. Has his clone dug up any treasures in the real world? The progress made was pretty good. That was because he had indeed discovered another item, other than the universe ring. Their clones had discovered another item in the real world. They had only dug out a corner. It was also metal. However, it seemed to be a treasure. Lin Xian once again condensed a few clones and told them to hurry up and dig. Now, he knew that his sword world was one of the 10 lands, and it was also an ancient land. He didn't know how many treasures and endless secrets were buried in it. He wanted to dig as much as possible. After walking around again, he found 2 fruits in the sword world. Lin Xian ate them and felt refreshed. It seemed that the power of the laws and the divine fire had become stronger. This made him happy. At this moment, the people on the ship of the underworld were also excited, especially Netherchild, who stood up and looked into the distance. Lin Xian also opened his eyes and looked forward. In the next moment, he was also shocked. He took a deep breath. He saw the nether chi rolling in front of him. An enormous object appeared. It was a palace that was incomparably black and towered between the heavens and the earth. This palace was very huge, as if it was a world. Moreover, the aura on it was extremely terrifying. It carried the power of a great emperor. This was the Underworld Temple, the palace where the great emperor lived. They had arrived. The 2 elders were excited. Netherchild glared at Lin Xian. He had become unscrupulous now. The reason for that was because his father would definitely be able to sense his existence in that place. As long as the other party made a move, his father would immediately protect him and kill the other party. Thinking of this, he couldn't wait. He soared into the air and shouted, "Father, please avenge me." His voice reached the Underworld Temple in front of him. This temple was like a world. Not only was there Nether Emperor, but there were also countless powerhouses and geniuses. When these people heard the shout, their expressions changed. Their nether child was in danger. What was going on? These people rushed out in an overwhelming manner. There were millions of them, and they were still increasing. In an instant, the entire ship of the underworld was enveloped. The 2 old men also stood guard by Ming Yu's side. They said, "Take this kid down. He dared to threaten and injure Netherchild." What? The powerhouses who had arrived were instantly enraged. Countless gazes were all fixed on Lin Xian. They pierced through the void around him. Did this kid eat a leopard's guts? How dare he fight against the Underworld Temple? He was the one who was reckless. Attack. Countless angry roars sounded. These people attacked. Thousands of Dharma laws and divine powers swept over, covering the sky and earth. No matter what kind of powerhouse the other party was, they would all be turned into ashes. Netherchild sneered. Lin Xian's face darkened. He waved his hand, and the sky-devouring jar appeared. He slapped it forward. With a bang, the aura exploded. It devoured the sky and the earth. The attacks of millions of powerhouses were all swallowed up. Not only that, this extreme Tao aura made the millions of powerhouses vomit blood and fly backward. This scene was extremely spectacular. Lin Xian had single-handedly swept through the myriad of worlds. Netherchild's pupil shrank when he saw this scene. The 2 elders were also dumbfounded. Lin Xian walked over like a demon god. He said, "Do you want to die? I can send you to hell in advance." How is this possible? Who are you? Why do you have the extreme Tao aura? Netherchild was also scared out of his wits. Who is he? How dare he behave so atrociously in the underworld temple? Do you think I don't exist? A cold voice sounded, and the great emperor's aura spread. In an instant, all the injuries of the million injured experts were completely healed. This was the power of a great emperor. It was omnipotent. At the same time, a huge force pressed down on Lin Xian. The sky-devouring jar returned to Lin Xian's side. The black vortex blocked the great emperor's aura. This scene shocked the underworld emperor who was inside. In the next moment, endless nether energy spread out, forming a huge, hazy phantom that looked down from the sky. Who are you? Is that the sky-devouring jar in your hand? Chapter 57:48. My name is Lin Xian. You can also call me Lin Wudi. The thing in my hand is indeed the sky-swallowing jar. Lin Wudi? Shameless ant. How dare you call yourself invincible? Underworld child's disdainful voice rang out. Father, kill him. How dare he injure me? Underworld child roared crazily. Hades harumphed coldly, useless thing. You have my bloodline and my legacy. How could you lose to an outsider? Underworld child trembled in fear. Father, I was wrong. I was careless. Even now, he still insisted that he was careless. Lin Xian smiled. You don't have to make things difficult for him. Even if you give him another chance, he's still no match for me. Besides, he's not the first crown prince to be defeated by me. Not only have I defeated several crown princes, but I've even killed one with my own hands. Lin Xian's voice made Underworld child's pupils constrict. Was this guy crazy? Underworld emperor snorted. Little ant, how dare you be so presumptuous in front of me? Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you? Don't think that you can compete with me just because you have the sky-swallowing jar. As an emperor, he was high and mighty. He was really angry. However, Lin Xian said, I'm here this time because I have something to discuss with you. Maybe we can work together. Work together? Ha ha ha. Underworld emperor's voice rang out, shaking heaven and earth. The people of the underworld god palace around him also laughed. This guy was crazy. How dare he work together with the emperor? Who was he? He was just 6 crown king. How could he be compared to the emperor? Stupid thing. Countless mocking voices rang out. Lin Xian, on the other hand, remained calm. He said, this time, I'm here for the 9th serenity. What did you say? Underworld emperor's voice suddenly became sharp. He couldn't believe it, because ordinary people didn't know about this place. It wasn't a huge secret in Jotian City, but only emperor-level figures knew about it. How did this kid know about it? 9 Netherlands? What was that? Sure enough, Underworld child didn't know either. However, Underworld emperor said coldly, You, come in. What? Father let him in? Underworld child was shocked. The surrounding experts were also stunned. Does this kid really have a shocking background? Lin Xian's lips curled into a smile. He walked forward and soon entered the huge Underworld God Palace. The aura in the Underworld God Hall was even more terrifying. However, Lin Xian was not afraid at all. The hall was spacious and empty. There was no one in sight. However, there was a supreme aura surrounding it, as if it was pressing down on Lin Xian, forcing him to kneel. Lin Xian snorted coldly. Swallow him up, heaven-swallowing jar. Opening the sword world, a terrifying power poured into the heaven-swallowing jar, protecting him. Tell me, how do you know about the 9th underworld? Who on earth sent you here? A cold voice sounded. Lin Xian took out the token his father had given him and raised it to the sky. He said, Feel the aura on this token. In the sky, a terrifying aura gathered and enveloped the token. Emperor Hades gasped in shock. This aura belonged to him. He could feel several terrifying auras on it. There was also a supreme flame that was throbbing in the sky. Was he from the god realm? They had really recovered. The void cracked open, and Emperor Hades walked over. He was a tall and handsome man with a head of black hair that danced in the wind. His chiseled face made it hard to believe that he was a great emperor who had lived for countless years. Lin Xian was also surprised. This was Emperor Hades. Sure enough, he could feel an extremely terrifying emperor's aura from him. In that case, you are also from the god realm. However, Your god realm was destroyed by the Otherworld Heavenly King. Now that you have made a comeback, can you contend against the Otherworld Heavenly King? I don't want to be involved in your battle. Lin Xian said, this is not something you can decide. As far as I know, the Otherworld Heavenly King has also sent people here, and they have already arrived in hell. Emperor Hades frowned slightly. He realized that the young man in front of him did not seem to be afraid of him at all. This made him a little angry. However, when he heard the other party's words, his expression darkened. The reason for that was because he had indeed sensed an enormous aura descending upon them. However, it had been well hidden. Now it seemed that it was the Otherworld Heavenly King. Kid, are you so confident that I will choose the God Realm? Why don't I choose the Otherworld Heavenly King? He was even more powerful, because if he chose the Otherworld Heavenly King, he would lose his freedom. The price was very high. This was Lin Xian's guess. However, he still said it out loud. Emperor Hades fell silent after hearing it. Lin Xian knew that he had guessed correctly. The Lord of the Otherworld Heavenly King was very ambitious. He wanted to control the entire universe and even the 10 lands. Now that he had seized the power of the 9 underworlds, he would unite with the other great emperors. However, in the end, these great emperors would also kneel and submit. What do you want me to do? Emperor Hades turned his back to Lin Xian, his icy voice echoing through the air. If you want me to go against the God Realm, I will not. Unless you are strong enough to contend with the Otherworld Heavenly King. You don't need to go against them directly. You just need to find the 2 blank steels. That thing? Emperor Hades shook his head. The 3 of us are searching for it, but there is little news. I have an item that might be of use to you. After Lin Xian finished speaking, he waved his hand and the Minotaur statue appeared in his palm. Emperor Hades saw it from the corner of his eye and spun around. He exclaimed, "You have this thing? The primordial Minotaur?" He was really too surprised. The young man in front of him was really beyond his expectations. With this thing, we might be able to deduce the whereabouts of one of the blank steels. Emperor Hades waved his hand and grabbed the Minotaur statue. Lin Xian didn't resist. Since they wanted to cooperate, he would trust them. He wasn't here on his own. He was here to represent the God Realm. Behind the God Realm stood a group of powerhouses. There were probably many great emperors as well. After all, they had been able to contend with the Otherworld Heavenly King. Although they had been defeated, it was enough to show their strength. They were far above the rest. Emperor Hades' body surged with terrifying flames. This was the fire of the underworld god. It was extremely mysterious. The general was surrounded by the Minotaur statue. Mysterious runes appeared on the Minotaur statue again. It was as if the great Tao was surrounding it. Then, the Minotaur statue floated in the air. Thousands of rays of light shone from above. Lin Xian was shocked when he saw it. He had tried countless methods before, but none of them worked. He didn't expect that it would require the power of a great emperor. Images appeared in the eyes of the Minotaur statue. Lin Xian was shocked when he saw it. This must have something to do with the blank steels. The reason for that was because he had indeed seen a steel without any words on it. It was just that Lin Xian had no idea where the other party was pointing at. He could only look at Emperor Hades. Emperor Hades was also shocked. So it was here. How surprising. If not for these clues, I wouldn't have been able to figure it out. Does that mean you know where it is? Kid, don't you have any respect for me? Emperor Hades suddenly lowered his head and stared at Lin Xian. A cold, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. The surrounding space crumbled instantly. Lin Xian felt like he was in an endless vortex. Chapter 5749. The anger of a great emperor was too terrifying. No one could resist it. It seemed that Ming Di was about to turn hostile. Lin Xian felt immense pressure. He roared and opened his sword shadow world. Endless power surged out. He struck out with a shocking attack. A terrifying black hole blocked the surrounding power. At the same time, endless light burst out from his eyes. A dragon-shaped sword energy rushed out. It tore through heaven and earth with a sharp aura. Ming Di, I advise you to stop. Don't make a mistake. Lin Xian shouted coldly. He could block it. Ming Di was shocked. He didn't expect that a small ant like him would have so much power. It seemed that the god realm valued him. In the next moment, he smiled and put away the fire of the underworld god. He said, "I'm just joking with you. Okay, let's work together. I can help you block the other great emperors. Then, I'll send some underworld god hall experts to go with you. But I want to know what you can give me. I can give you a promise." Lin Xian said, "What promise?" "I'll let you in after we conquer the ninth underworld. It's a good offer. I can't refuse. But are you sure you can open the ninth underworld? It's not an ordinary place. It's one of the legendary Jotian City. It's very difficult and mysterious. Are you sure? If I say I can, I can." Lin Xian's eyes were full of confidence. What an arrogant kid. However, I sensed the aura of a great emperor on the token more than once. "So, I believe you this time." With a wave of his hand, the Minotaur statue was given to Lin Xian again. Then he said, "The place is at the Bridge of Helplessness. I'll have Underworld Child and the Underworld God Hall experts go with you." "Okay." Lin Xian nodded. Ming Di waved his hand and sent out a stream of energy. Before long, another figure appeared in the Underworld God Hall. It was Underworld Child. "Greetings, Father." Underworld Child bowed respectfully. He was also surprised to see that Lin Xian was still alive. Did Father really not kill him? "Later, take the Underworld God Hall experts with you. And this Lin Gongzi." They would head to the Bridge of Helplessness together to obtain the wordless heavenly steel. With him, Underworld Child was stunned. Why? Since his imperial father already knew about the wordless heavenly steel, Chu Feng had no choice but to accept it. "We should have killed him and kept him for ourselves." "Don't be rude. Lin Gongzi is my honored guest. If you dare to be rude again, I'll punish you according to the family rules. Hurry up and apologize." Underworld Child's pupils contracted. "Father, please forgive me. I was wrong." He was really shocked. He didn't expect this young man to have such a background, to be able to become Imperial Father's guest. He was horrified. "Lin Gongzi, I'm sorry for offending you before. Please forgive me." Underworld Child hurriedly lowered his head. "For the sake of Emperor Hades, I'll spare you this time," Lin Xian said in a deep voice. "All right, let's get moving. I believe it won't take long for the other two martial monarchs to learn about it." Qin Nin nodded. There was no time to lose, so they had to act quickly. Lin Xian also took a deep breath. Underworld Child had gathered countless experts of the Underworld God Hall. Together, they set off toward the Bridge of Helplessness. Emperor Hades was the only one left in the spacious hall. He narrowed his eyes. Interesting guy. The sky-devouring jar. I also sensed another sharp aura from him. Could it be the Great Dragon Sword? Apart from that, there's also a demonic aura. This guy has so many different powers. How interesting. If this guy became a martial monarch, he would definitely be a terrifying force. Perhaps he could give Higan a headache. At the thought of Higan, Emperor Hades's face darkened. Was choosing Higan the right choice? He took a deep breath and his eyes flashed. "Emperor Hades, did you make the right choice back then?" Emperor Hades's guess was right. The other two martial monarchs' forces also began to move. The Acheron Palace, surrounded by endless yellow springs. This was the Acheron Emperor's sect. After the Acheron Emperor learned about the situation with the Minotaur statue, his eyes shone with endless light. He summoned the 7 halls. He ordered the 7 hall masters to bring countless experts over. They must get the immemorial Minotaur. At the 7 halls, countless figures rode the 7 streams of yellow springs and soared into the sky, disappearing from sight. The White Bone Cave was the ancient emperor's sect. In the White Bone Cave, the bones of countless experts were reborn, turning into a forest. In the depths of the White Bone Cave, 2 figures stood. One was the pink skull. The other was half a frog. She was the green-robed emperor. This time, she came with the mission of Higan. She chose Emperor Bone. "If you succeed this time, I will recommend you to join Higan. At that time, your immortal chi will increase again, and your strength will improve." This was the green-robed emperor's condition. Emperor Bone was also tempted. There were strong and weak martial monarchs. This realm was indeed strong. However, to take another step forward, It was truly too difficult. The power of ordinary worlds was not enough. Even martial monarchs could control hundreds of worlds in an instant, but it was useless. Only a more mysterious power could do it. For example, the power of Jutian Shidi. Higan controlled the Land of Eternity, which contained mysterious power. If he could join it, he could definitely increase his strength again. Don't worry, I will help you complete the mission. This time, I really have a clue. The Bone Emperor was a pink skeleton. She laughed softly. There was a wisp of immortal chi around her body. At this moment, it bloomed with light. Then, a mask appeared in her palm. What was this? The green-robed emperor was also surprised. The White Bone Emperor said, Oxhead and Horseface are the two great experts of the ancient era. Legend has it that they left behind two things, each containing two secrets. Oxhead, I have no news for the time being. However, I got Horseface. This is Horseface. What news? The green-robed emperor was also surprised. Did it have anything to do with their mission this time? I sensed the news from it. It's about a wordless heavenly steel in the Dead Soul Abyss. You have to know that if you want to enter the 9 underworlds, you have to enter the 18 levels of hell. You have to bring the wordless heavenly steel to enter the 17th level. You have to open the 17th level to enter the 18th level. Therefore, the wordless heavenly steel is extremely important. This is one of them. Very good. The green-robed emperor was also happy. This time, choosing Emperor Bone was the best choice. To be honest, before he came, he was also a little hesitant, because he originally wanted to choose the other one, which was Emperor Ming. However, in the end, he gave up, because Emperor Ming was related to Emperor Xian. Previously, he had just snatched something from the descendant of Emperor Xian. In addition, he had an inexplicable dislike for Emperor Xian back then. Therefore, he did not choose Emperor Ming. Now, it seemed that he was right, because Emperor Ming definitely did not have any clues. Since we know, let's go. With the strength of the two of us, it shouldn't be a problem for us to obtain this wordless heavenly steel, right? The White Bone Emperor also nodded. Yes, that's right. We have to speed up. We can't let the other two guys know. The White Bone Cave also secretly took action. The other two great emperors did not notice the White Bone Cave's actions, because they each had their own goals. Emperor Ming and Lin Xian had joined forces, and the Yellow Spring Great Emperor's goal was also Lin Xian. This time, they followed him all the way. They all set off towards the Bridge of Helplessness. Chapter 5750. Withered vines, old trees, flowing water, small bridges. The surroundings were very quiet. Only the sound of crows could be heard. The endless army landed, but they didn't make any sound. Two young men led the army. They were Lin Xian and Underworld Child. Lin Xian controlled the Minotaur statue. Light burst out from his eyes and shrouded the surroundings. He said, "Find the Bridge of Helplessness first." Underworld Child said, "This is the Bridge of Helplessness." He was unhappy. His father actually told him to listen to the other party. How despicable. However, this was his father's decision. He really didn't dare to disobey. He could only say coldly, "Here?" He looked at the mossy bridge under his feet. Lin Xian was also surprised. No way. The legendary Bridge of Helplessness in Hell should be very mysterious. How could it be so desolate? Moreover, it's too simple. Therefore, my father is also very surprised. He didn't expect that the wordless heavenly tablet would be here. To be honest, we can only rely on the two of us this time. My father has to stop the other great emperors. If you don't have a way, I'm afraid we'll have to search for several years. There is a way. Lin Xian snorted coldly. Let your men attack this Bridge of Helplessness. What? You're crazy. Underworld Child shouted angrily. I'm the one in charge of this operation. Do you dare to disobey my orders? Lin Xian said coldly. Underworld Child snorted and said, Attack! The surrounding powerhouses attacked crazily. They attacked the small bridge under their feet. Rumbling sounds rang out, and the surrounding wind swept over. Those crows also flapped their wings and flew away quickly. After a series of crazy attacks, everyone stopped, but their brows were tightly knitted. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. It's really strange. Such a simple bridge can withstand the attacks of so many powerhouses. It's really the bridge of helplessness. They attacked again. Since he had discovered the other party's strangeness, Lin Xian wouldn't stop. Next, the powerhouses of the underworld temple attacked crazily. Rumbling sounds rang out in all directions. Fortunately, this place was relatively desolate. Usually, no one would come here, so no one paid attention to it. However, in the sky, there was an extremely terrifying yellow spring dancing crazily. Someone displayed great magical force, forming a pair of yellow spring's eyes, piercing through heaven and earth. He sensed its aura. An expert with glowing eyes said. The others changed directions and quickly flew away. Not long after, they heard a rumbling sound before them. That should be the bridge of helplessness. They were attacking the bridge of helplessness. From the looks of it, something was indeed going on. Impact. The yellow spring water moved even faster. Each stream of yellow spring water was 1,000,000 miles long. As it descended, it enveloped the entire world. The people attacking from below also raised their heads to look at the sky. Underworld Child's expression changed. The yellow spring water was dripping. The people of the Yellow Spring sect were here. Damn it, they actually came so quickly. Lin Xian also frowned. That shouldn't be the case. How did these people find him? Could it be because of him? He had fought with those from the Yellow Spring sect in the past. Perhaps the other party had used his aura to track him down. He said, "Stop attacking and get ready for a big battle." Everyone stopped. The cold aura on them became even more terrifying and shot into the sky. Underworld Child shouted coldly, "People of the Yellow Spring sect, get out of here." In the Yellow Spring water, countless experts filled the air. Some terrifying figures swept across. Among them, there was a man wearing black armor standing in the sky. Under his feet, the Yellow Spring water surged. Next to him, there was a man with strange eyes that shrouded the entire area. Not long after, he stared at Lin Xian and said, "Hall Master, it's him." The man in black armor was the Dark Hall Master. At this moment, he lowered his head and stared at Lin Xian. "It's you who killed 100,000 of my Dark Hall army. You snatched the Minotaur statue." Underworld Child also frowned. "They are coming for you. You really deserve to die. This is going to be troublesome." Lin Xian snorted. "Shut up. They will come sooner or later. Since they are here, just get rid of them. What's the use of complaining?" Underworld Child was furious. In addition to the Yellow Spring sect, there is also the White Bone Cave. "Let's see what you can do then." Lin Xian walked out. He looked up at the sky and said, "Yes, the Minotaur statue is in my hands. Do you want it?" He waved his hand, and the Minotaur statue appeared. The other people's eyes turned red. The Dark Hall Master said, "Hand over the Minotaur statue, and I will give you a quick death." Lin Xian smiled. He didn't answer. Instead, he suddenly attacked. Reincarnation appeared in his eyes. It turned into 6 phantoms and suppressed the people in front of him. He didn't attack the Dark Hall Master. Instead, he attacked the man next to him whose eyes were shining with golden light. He saw that the man's eye technique was special. It should be the other party who had discovered his tracks. He couldn't let such a person live. Boom. The power of reincarnation exploded. The man with shining eyes screamed. His eyes were bleeding. He looked very miserable. "Damn it. How dare you hurt him?" The Dark Hall Master was also angry. "Kill." With a loud roar, a black fist came crashing down. "Do you think we are weak?" Underworld Child shouted angrily. This time, he also brought the masters of the Underworld God Hall. Immediately, the masters went up to meet him. The Dark Hall Master shouted angrily, "Take this kid down." A great battle broke out. The masters of the Dark Hall rushed down crazily. However, the people of the other halls didn't seem to take action. They were still looking at each other coldly. Someone asked, "Hall Master, shouldn't we do it?" A woman said, "Let's use the Dark Hall to check his strength first." The Dark Hall was also full of masters. Underworld Child waved his hand. The masters of the Underworld God Hall behind him rushed into the sky. However, someone still arrived in front of Lin Xian. It was a burly man who was hundreds of meters tall. However, his whole body was rotten. He opened his mouth and spat out a terrifying stream of water from the yellow spring. The water from the yellow spring corroded the entire void. It carried an extremely strong law of the yellow spring. It wanted to envelop Lin Xian. Lin Xian snorted and punched out. The 9 suns' divine fire turned into a golden crow and spread its wings. It directly evaporated all the water from the yellow spring. Not only that, the golden crow even split open the body of the rotting man. There was no blood, only some rotten corpse water sprinkled from the sky. It was disgusting. Die. At this moment, the void shattered. A monster appeared behind Lin Xian. It had a human head and a horse body. He raised his hoof and slammed it on Lin Xian's back. A deafening sound was heard. However, Lin Xian's body only swayed a little. Then, with a backhand punch, he sent the centaur flying. He was so strong. When the other experts saw this, their brows furrowed tightly. These masters from the Dark Hall were very terrifying. The burly man from before was called the King of Corrosion. The water from the yellow spring on his body could corrode everything. It could even melt Saint Ice. The centaur who sneaked up on him was equally terrifying. It had a powerful bloodline. It was the legendary Hell Horse. No one would be able to withstand a single kick. But now, the other party could withstand it. How strong was the other party's body? Chapter 57-51. At this moment, the injured golden-eyed man rushed over again. His eyes also shot out a terrifying light that turned into a sharp sword. The 3 experts surrounded Lin Xian. The heavenly path of reincarnation summoned the heavenly realm. Lin Xian's cold voice sounded. In the sky, a pair of hands appeared in the eyes of the 6 paths of reincarnation and slammed down. The golden-eyed man's soul was instantly shattered. He screamed and died. Heaven-defying fist. Lin Xian attacked the infernal horse and penetrated its body. As for the Carrion King, the 9 suns that were formed by the 9 suns' divine flame had turned into ashes. In the blink of an eye, the 3 experts had all died. How could he be so powerful? The experts of the Dark Hall were stunned. The people of the other halls were also shocked. This person had a powerful eye technique, a terrifying physique, and a magical flame. It was really shocking. Damn it. How dare you kill my experts? I'll make you suffer a fate worse than death. In the distance, the Dark Hall Master, who was fighting, shouted angrily. He sent his opponent flying with a palm. Then, he quickly charged over. His palm was like a huge mountain from hell, pressing down from the sky. The people of the underworld hall around him were all sent flying. I'll help you. Another figure walked over with a monstrous killing intent. He was the hall master of the Bloody Massacre Hall. This was because he could see that although the kid in front of him was powerful, his strength was only at the level of the 7-crown king. He was the 8-crown king. Therefore, it was easy for him to kill his opponent. This merit was his. The Dark Hall Master shouted angrily, "Get lost! This is my prey." He quickly rushed over. The Bloody Massacre Hall Master also slashed out a blood-colored long saber. A terrifying divine ability descended from the sky. "Oh no, kid, quickly dodge. Otherwise, I can't save you." The underworld child shouted angrily in the distance. Although he was the crown prince, these 2 top-notch almighties were not people that he could contend against. "You want to kill me with just the 2 of you?" Lin Xian snorted coldly. A cold killing intent appeared in his eyes. Did they really think that he was easy to kill? With a wave of his hand, the cosmos ring appeared in his hand. Then, he charged toward the Dark Hall Master. A golden ray of light pierced through the 9 heavens. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out. A miserable shriek was heard, and the Dark Hall Master's body suddenly shattered into pieces, scattering all over the ground. The golden light returned to Lin Xian's hand. It was the universe ring. What was going on? The Bloody Massacre Hall Master, who was in the middle of attacking, stopped. The other halls were also stunned. Countless experts stared with their eyes wide open. The underworld child's pupils shrank as well. He discovered that the Dark Hall Master was dead. That was the 8-crown king. Yet he had been killed in a single move. What did this brat have? Was it an extreme weapon? No, he didn't feel the might of the extreme Tao. What the hell was that? He was going crazy. He didn't expect the other party to have such a trump card. The others were even more terrified. The Bloody Massacre Hall leader's face was extremely pale. Damn it. He turned around and retreated. He had originally thought that he would be able to steal the credit. But now, it seemed that it was very likely that he would lose his life. The Hall Master. The people of the Dark Hall roared crazily. They wanted to rush over. However, they were blocked by the people of the Underworld God Hall. Lin Xian clenched his fist and punched at the Bloody Massacre Hall Master. The Bloody Massacre Hall Master turned around and punched out. The two collided, and he was forced back. What a powerful force. However, it was impossible for the other party to kill him instantly. I don't believe that you can still use a second move. He grinned sinisterly and rushed over. An extremely terrifying sea of blood appeared on his body, as if the blood god had descended. Divine ability, blood country suppression. A voice sounded. Lin Xian shouted coldly, "Xiao Bai, it's up to you." He put away the universe ring. At the same time, Xiao Bai dug out the green-skinned gourd from the sword world and flew out. It clapped its little paws, "Baby, please turn around." The green-skinned gourd split open, and a sword light flew out, illuminating the 9 heavens and 10 lands. In the next moment, the entire blood country was split into 2 halves. The Bloody Massacre Hall Master also stopped, and a bloody line appeared on his neck. Then, his head rolled and fell to the ground. He was killed in one move. Everyone was stunned. The other experts sucked in a deep breath as they went mad. The people of the Bloody Massacre Hall were also stunned. It was another peerless weapon. What on earth was it? Lin Xian was also surprised. He knew about this green-skinned gourd. It was something that Xiao Bai had obtained by chance. The sword inside was very powerful. However, it was impossible to kill the 8-crown king. However, after being buried in the sword world for a period of time, its power had increased by so much. Was this the ancient land? It contained a mysterious and unfathomable power. After one strike, the green-skinned gourd recovered, and the light on it dimmed. Xiao Bai put it away happily. He entered the sword world, dug a hole again, and buried it. Lin Xian turned around and looked around. He said coldly, "Whoever is still not convinced, come and accept your death." Lin Xian had shocked countless powerhouses by himself. At this moment, no one dared to step forward. Lin Xian laughed. "You really are ants. You are all trash. Damn it, let's go together and kill him." The powerhouses of the Bloody Massacre Hall roared crazily. They covered the sky and covered the earth as they rushed over. The other hall masters also said, "Let's all attack. This kid is too strange." In an instant, another group of people rushed over in an overwhelming manner. Underworld Child also shouted angrily, "Everyone from the Underworld God Hall, move out." The remaining powerhouses also rushed up and killed in all directions. However, there were many people in the 7 halls. Many of them instantly rushed to Lin Xian's side. Lin Xian waved his sleeve. The Cosmos sword formation, heaven and earth were all swords. The immortal technique seed in his left eye spread out. The Cosmos sword formation he used was an immortal technique that seized the fortune of heaven and earth. An endless amount of sword chi gushed out. Glorious heaven and earth. Wherever it passed, the experts of the Yellow Spring sect were pierced and fell one after another. Between heaven and earth, there was a sea of blood, which was terrifying. The people of the Bloody Massacre Hall roared together. Divine power, blood-sucking great technique. They actually absorbed all the blood in the sky. Then, an extremely terrifying monstrous beast appeared above their heads. It was the Blood Demon, which was very terrifying. A claw came down like a mountain, covering the sky and earth. The blood of the people around all surged. It was too powerful. The Bloody Massacre Hall was related to blood. The more blood they absorbed, the stronger they became. Go to hell. They were going to avenge their hall master. A palm passed through the 9 heavens and fell from the sky, slapping toward Lin Xian. Lin Xian looked up at the sky. The divine fire between his eyebrows was always blooming with endless light. He soared into the sky and waved his fist. Divine power, heaven-defying strike. The heaven-defying fist technique, with a shocking long arc, turned into an eternal light. It collided with the blood demon's palm. A terrifying sound rang out. The blood-colored palm was pierced through. This heaven-defying power directly smashed tens of thousands of powerhouses of the bloody massacre hall into pieces. Kill! Lin Xian roared to the sky. The more he fought, the braver he became. He swept in all directions, as if he had entered a no-man's land. The powerhouses of the other halls all targeted Lin Xian. They rushed over in an overwhelming manner. At this time, he summoned the Samsara sword. In the face of hundreds of thousands of powerhouses, Lin Xian used his Rinnegan. Between heaven and earth, the phantom of the Samsara sword appeared. With a slash of the sword, hundreds of thousands of powerhouses fell in droves. The surrounding people were all going crazy. Even the remaining hall masters had pale faces. Among them, there was a woman. She was wearing a dark moon battle robe and said coldly, "He has used all his trump cards. I don't think he has much strength left. Hurry up and do it." After speaking, she took the initiative to rush over. A dark moon scepter appeared in her hand. As she waved it, it brought up black moonlight. It cut open heaven and earth. Chapter 57-52. Lin Xian used the power of his physique to block the attack. Flames danced, and his arm went numb. The other party had such a powerful ability. The Dark Moon Hall Master was even more shocked. This attack didn't hurt the other party. What kind of physique was this? It was really a peerless treasure body. If I can get your physique, I will be invincible and have no weakness. A cold voice came from the void. Then, a terrifying soul power poured into Lin Xian's mind. He wanted to seize Lin Xian's body. This was the Hall Master of the Soul Devourer Hall. Lin Xian snorted coldly. In the next moment, the power of reincarnation erupted in front of his eyes to resist. Yet, you were still able to block it and unleash such a terrifying soul sword. Your power actually still exists. The Hall Master of the Soul Hall was extremely surprised. So what? You will definitely die. Two more figures appeared. One of them was tall and was surrounded by a black storm. He released a black storm. The other one crawled like a lizard, but he had a human head and the tail of a python. In the end, he swung a meteor hammer fiercely. It hit Lin Xian's body. The two attacked and sent Lin Xian flying. Boom! The mountain range in the distance was penetrated. Countless boulders rolled down and enveloped Lin Xian. Dust and fog filled the air, shaking the heavens and the earth. Countless black holes were floating. They hit. This time, the four hall masters attacked together. Each of them had the power of the Eight-Crown King. The four of them attacked together, and they were enough to kill any powerhouse. Not good. Underworld Child's face was also ugly. He was fighting with the others in the seven halls and didn't have the strength to support Lin Xian. When he saw this scene, he was also shocked. This kid wouldn't be killed, right? If that was the case, the situation would be troublesome. Next, he would be the unlucky one. He wanted to escape. He even wanted to summon his father. The four hall masters stood in the sky and sneered. One of them was killed. What a troublesome opponent. They didn't expect that there would be such a powerful figure in the younger generation. So what? Didn't he die in the end? He was next. They stared at the underworld child. Dark Moon Hall Master called out, "Your Highness, you'd better be obedient and hand over the thing. Otherwise, don't blame us for being merciless." Damn it. Underworld Child's face was cold and gloomy. The other experts of the Dark Hall also quickly returned to protect His Highness. They returned to Underworld Child's side as if they were facing a great enemy. "Since you're so stubborn, then let's do it." The Mulch Hall Master was brimming with killing intent. This time, they had to get the Minotaur statue. Just as they were about to make a move, a rumbling sound came from the distant ruins. The nearby boulders were sent flying, and a figure stood up. Everyone turned to look. The pupils of the four hall masters shrank. "You're still alive?" Underworld Child also exclaimed, "That's great." They saw Lin Xian stand up. 2 cracks appeared on his back. However, he was recovering quickly. Although the blood was still dripping, the aura seemed to have become stronger. After withstanding 2 peerless divine abilities, he only suffered such minor injuries. The 2 hall masters were stunned. Just now, that sneak attack was enough to kill any 8 crown king. This guy was too strange. Let's attack together and kill him. The 4 hall masters rose into the air again. They felt that the other party was even more terrifying than the crown prince. They would never allow such a person to live. Kill him. The Minotaur statue was in his hands. 4 angry roars sounded. Between heaven and earth, 4 peerless divine abilities appeared. There was a terrifying storm and a terrifying meteor. The black moonlight seemed to be able to cover the entire world. There was also an extremely strange soul attack. Divine ability, Fury of the Wind. Divine ability, Falling Meteor. Divine ability, Dark Moon Descends. Divine ability, Soul Control Heaven and Earth. The power of the 4 peerless divine abilities erupted together, terrifying everyone. No one could block it, unless it was the 9 crown king. Could this kid in front of them resist it? Wherever the 4 divine abilities passed, the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Nothing could resist it. In an instant, they arrived in front of Lin Xian. This guy didn't dodge. Did he want to resist it head-on? The underworld child went crazy in the distance. The people of the underworld god hall also frowned. They had never seen such an arrogant person. Could it be that this kid really thought that he could stand shoulder to shoulder with the 9 crown king? A sword chi appeared in Lin Xian's hand. He said in a deep voice, "Self-created sword technique, heaven-defying sword." The first sword, Windslayer. The sword light flashed, and a huge sword chi pierced through heaven and earth, slashing forward. The black storm was hit by the slash, and it kept shaking. Then, it was mercilessly torn apart. The Serene Wind Hall Master didn't have time to escape and was split in half. The second sword, Polar Star. Lin Xian stabbed out with his sword, and it seemed to turn into the most dazzling starlight, colliding with the meteor hammer. A deafening sound was heard. The meteor hammer was pierced by the sword. The Earth Demon Hall Master let out a miserable cry. Its tail was cut. Its entire body was nailed in the void. The third sword, Flying Moon. Lin Xian's sword chi swept out, turning into a half-moon in front of him. The laws condensed on it, and the heaven-defying power rotated rapidly. This sword and the dark moon descending collided, and the mountains and rivers changed color. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The entire Dark Moon world was mercilessly split apart. The Dark Moon Hall Master was cut in half by the sword chi. The 2 halves of his body were incomparably miserable. The fourth sword, Broken Soul. As the voice fell, there was no sword chi. While everyone was in a daze, the Soul Hall Master clutched his head and screamed. His soul had been split open. This last sword was actually without a trace. It was extremely strange, for sword moves seriously injured the 4 hall masters. Countless people were stunned. These 4 hall masters were all 8 crown kings. The 4 of them joined forces, but they couldn't do anything to the other party. The sword chi in Lin Xian's hand disappeared, but his eyes lit up. The heaven-defying sword technique. So that's how it is. I understand. This was the sword technique that Lin Xian created himself, which he called the heaven-defying sword technique. It was different from the Qinkuan sword technique. The Qinkuan sword technique used flowers and trees as swords. It walked the path of righteousness. However, the heaven-defying sword technique was different. The heaven-defying sword technique fully displayed the advantage of the great dragon sword soul. Whatever divine ability or immortal technique his opponent used, he would use the same divine ability or immortal technique. He returned the attack with an even more terrifying power. This was the heaven-defying sword technique. Kill. After seriously injuring the 4 hall masters, Lin Xian kept attacking. This time, he used the Qinkuan sword technique. Everything in the world was a sword, and the broken weapons turned into terrifying sword lights. They pierced through the powerhouses of the Dark Moon Hall. The blood in the sky turned into blood swords and pierced through the powerhouses of the Dark Moon Hall. The surrounding storm turned into storm swords and attacked the people of the Ghostly Wind Hall. The stones that fell from the mountains in the distance also turned into giant stone swords and joined the battle. The whole world seemed to have turned into a peerless sword formation. Everything could be turned into sword chi and used by Lin Xian. Is this guy still human? Damn it. How can he be so powerful? Oh no, they are really crazy. Should we retreat? Some people couldn't help it. They couldn't resist at all. The 4 hall masters were injured and looked pale. They gathered together and discussed with each other. The Dark Moon Hall Master said, "Don't worry, there is still one person who hasn't made a move yet." Chapter 57-53. The 4 Hall Masters, including the 2 who were killed before, only had 6 people left. There was still one who hadn't appeared yet. Therefore, they still had a chance. Lin Xian didn't know about the last Hall Master. The eyes of the ox head in Lin Xian's hand emitted a terrifying light. Lin Xian injected a trace of the power of an extreme weapon into it. The ox head emitted a terrifying radiance and turned into an ancient phantom, roaring towards the sky. It roared and rushed into the Bridge of Helplessness. The Bridge of Helplessness had gone through a great battle. The surrounding void cracked and the ground shattered. Only the Bridge of Helplessness was intact. However, at this moment, the Bridge of Helplessness shook violently. Endless cracks appeared on it. Not good, the bridge is broken. Retreat quickly. The others soared into the sky. Lin Xian also paid close attention. The cracks appeared, and then the fragments fell. However, there was no water on the bridge. It seemed that the outer layer had shattered. Then, his true face appeared. A rumbling sound rang out, and a terrifying aura of death spread in all directions. The aura on the Bridge of Helplessness was too terrifying. When it appeared, it was like a sleeping giant beast that was coiling above the ground. The surrounding ground cracked. After the Bridge of Helplessness appeared, it spread for thousands of miles. There seemed to be no end in sight. 3 great Tao runes condensed on the bridge, forming the words Bridge of Helplessness. At the end of the Bridge of Helplessness was a stone tablet. It was hidden in the fog. It seemed to be an illusion, but it also seemed to be real. Could it be the real wordless heavenly steel? Countless people looked into the distance. Their eyes shone. The 4 hall masters were overjoyed. They really found it. Underworld Child also sucked in a breath of cold air. He led the experts of the Underworld God Hall to the Bridge of Helplessness. Legend had it that the Bridge of Helplessness of Hell was extremely terrifying. In the entire Bridge of Helplessness, one could only stand on the bridge. On both sides of the bridge was an endless abyss. After falling, one would never be able to reincarnate. Was this the real Bridge of Helplessness? It was indeed mysterious. Lin Xian's lips curled up. He also descended. The people from the other 7 halls also descended. However, just as they landed on the Bridge of Helplessness, everyone felt their scalps go numb. They could sense an extremely strong aura of death passing through their bodies from the soles of their feet. It was as if he wanted to turn them into bones. The people from the other halls swallowed their saliva. Even though they were members of the Yellow Spring sect, they were still able to defeat the Yellow Spring sect. However, they were living beings after all. What they cultivated was only the laws of hell. They were not truly inanimate objects. At that moment, the threat posed by the aura of death was simply too great. It was not only the Yellow Spring sect. The people from the Underworld God Hall were the same. Even the Underworld Child let out a furious roar as he activated his imperial bloodline with all his might to defend himself. The 4 hall masters all took out their most powerful divine abilities. The Dark Moon Division Master said, "Is this the real Naiha Bridge?" It was really too terrifying. What we should be standing on should be death on the Naraka Bridge. In the legends, after crossing the Naraka Bridge, one could enter Samsara. The side where the wordless heavenly steel was stored should have a powerful life force. Go over quickly. These people moved quickly. However, the further they went, the more terrifying the aura of death became. In the end, they could not even move an inch. The masters from the Underworld God Hall were also shocked. That's not right. Rumor has it that Ming Per is on the Bridge of Helplessness. At this moment, the Bridge of Helplessness was at the front line. Where did Ming Pa go? The Underworld Child said, I heard from my father that Mengpur, Oxhead, and Horseface were all masters of the primordial age. It had been more than 1,000,000 years since the primordial age. These people had long disappeared. Don't think too much. Get the wordless heavenly steel first. These people also worked hard to move forward. Suddenly, several figures from the underworld god hall beside the underworld child fell with a plop. Their faces were filled with pain. What was going on? Was the aura of death too terrifying? No, they did not take away their life force. Moreover, their bodies were purple. Could it be that they were poisoned? The masters from the underworld god hall narrowed their eyes when they saw this. In the next moment, they checked their bodies. Not good. They cried out in alarm. We're poisoned. Your Highness, use the laws to protect us. But it was useless. It was too late. Even the underworld child's body was shaking. He felt dizzy, as if his body was about to rot. His internal organs were about to shatter. Block it. He activated the bloodline of the underworld emperor to keep himself from fainting. However, a large number of the experts around him had fainted, and it was still going on. Damn it! What was going on? Why? The people from the Yellow Spring sect were fine? The underworld god hall was affected. But none of the people from the Yellow Spring sect fell, because it was one of their people who did it. Lin Xian walked over with a frown on his face. The other party had hidden their strength well. The person who ran away was definitely the 8-Crown King, and an extremely strange one at that. Ha ha ha. It seemed that the underworld god hall had made a move. The 4 hall masters on the other side laughed. The people from the other halls were also delighted. The people from the Spirit Fog Hall said coldly, "You dare to go against us? You don't know what's good for you. Once our hall master makes a move, you will all fall. Not good. There's one more person." The underworld child's face turned ugly. The other masters who had fallen on the ground also shouted angrily, "Your Highness, run, run." Now that they were seriously injured, they could not fight against the other party at all. Who is it? Come out. The underworld child used his bloodline to block the attack as he shouted madly. Lin Xian, who was next to him, was very quiet. At this moment, mist filled the air behind Lin Xian. A pair of hands appeared and grabbed the other party's shoulders. Then, an illusory face appeared beside Lin Xian's ear. She said softly, "I did it. I am the hall master of the Spirit Mist Hall." The moment the bridge of helplessness appeared, I took advantage of your carelessness and let down your guard. I released my mist. My mist is in the water of the Yellow Spring. After 6,000 years of refinement, it has extremely terrifying power. Once inhaled, it will be impossible to resist. Young man, do you have any last words? Leave them. At first, the illusory face was a beautiful face. Then, it turned into the face of a demon, laughing hideously. He pounced on Lin Xian fiercely. Boom! Demonic chi suddenly spread out from Lin Xian's body. He no longer suppressed the demonic shadow. The demon god's phantom rushed out in an instant. With a palm strike, it sent the clouds in the sky flying. The pupils of the Spirit Mist Hall master constricted. He stood there in a daze. Impossible? He felt that his life was disappearing. What was that black shadow? How could it kill him directly? Wasn't this young man poisoned? He shouldn't be able to use his power anymore. But why? Everything was beyond his expectation. He fell to the ground, unable to believe it. In the end, he died in despair. With the death of the Spirit Mist Hall master, those who were poisoned also recovered. They stood up from the ground, shocked. I really recovered. Lin Gongzi was too terrifying. The masters of the underworld god hall were shocked. The underworld child was also stunned. Now, he finally knew why Lin Xian was his father's honored guest. Because the other party was really too heaven-defying. Chapter 57-54. The people of the Yellow Spring sect were dumbfounded when they saw this scene. Their greatest trump card, the Spirit Mist Hall master, had fallen just like that? This guy was too terrifying. His strength was far beyond the hall masters. Could it be that the core elders of the Yellow Spring sect had to come to suppress him? Why do I feel that even the core elders can't suppress him? Because he has too many trump cards in his hand. Damn it. I thought that the most difficult one to deal with would be the underworld child. I didn't expect it to be this person. The 4 hall masters gritted their teeth. They were extremely frightened. They couldn't wait any longer. They had to inform the great emperor. The wordless steel had already appeared, and they couldn't do anything about it. They could only ask the Yellow Spring Great Emperor for help. Thinking of this, the 4 of them joined forces and sent a terrifying message to the 9 heavens. Lin Xian raised his head. His reincarnation eye exploded, emitting a terrifying light that shrouded the world. That message had actually been blocked. Not good. Everyone, let's attack together. The 4 hall masters roared crazily. The people behind quickly charged over. A great battle broke out in an instant. They finally sent the message. The 4 of them heaved a sigh of relief. All right, let's see how this kid will die when their great emperor comes. Not good. The faces of the people of the Underworld God Hall changed drastically. The Underworld child also hurriedly sent a message to his father. Only a great emperor could resist a great emperor. In the Underworld God Hall, the Underworld Emperor stood up after receiving the message. An incomparably resplendent light burst out from his eyes. Was it time to make a move? He soared into the sky and flew into the distance. On the other side, the Yellow Spring Great Emperor of the Yellow Spring Hall let out a long roar. Great! I finally found the wordless steel. I must get it before the other 2 great emperors. He tore open the void and transformed it into endless water of the Yellow Spring, rushing over quickly. The speed of a great emperor was extremely fast. In an instant, he quickly arrived near the Bridge of Helplessness. However, at this moment, 2 chains appeared in the void and shrouded him. They directly brought him back. He smashed through the endless void and arrived at a remote place in hell. Who dares to plot against me? The Yellow Spring Great Emperor roared crazily. Old friend, why are you in such a hurry? Where are you going? Emperor Ming walked out and said with a smile. The Yellow Spring Emperor's face turned cold. It's you. You're here to stop me just for the wordless heavenly steel, right? Aren't you afraid that the Bone Sovereign will take advantage of this opportunity to attack? I've already set up an array formation at the White Bone Cave. As long as the Bone Emperor moves, I will be able to sense it. However, the Bone Emperor did not head towards the Bridge of Helplessness. Instead, he left early. I don't know, and I don't care where he went. All I have to do is stop you. Damn it. The Yellow Spring Emperor's expression changed. You already knew about the clues to the wordless heavenly steel. He was anxious. This way, he would be at a disadvantage. Get out of here. He unleashed the terrifying power of Huang Quan that swept out in all directions. However, they were all blocked by Ming Di. It's impossible for you to walk in front of me. Moreover, those who were fighting for the wordless heavenly steel were all existences below the ground. Those people are just ants. They are not worthy of us taking action. Why don't we just let them fight among themselves? Get lost. The Yellow Spring Monarch roared crazily, shattering the 9 heavens. The entire infernal realm seemed to be trembling. The anger of a monarch was absolutely terrifying to the extreme. At this moment, countless clans in the infernal realm were prostrating themselves on the ground. They could feel a deva roaring in the 9 heavens. The power almost made them faint. The ground was angry. Who dared to anger a monarch? The Yellow Spring Emperor's expression was cold. If the Yellow Spring sect had the upper hand, he would not have to do anything. Now that those people were asking for help, it meant that the Yellow Spring sect was in great danger. If the monarch obtained the item, it would be troublesome. However, no matter how strong he was only evenly matched with Ming Di. It would be easy for the monarch to restrain him. You will regret this, Ming Di. Although I won't do anything, the core elders of the Yellow Spring sect will. I'd like to see what your son will do then. Kill the son who blames me for teaching you. Don't worry, you won't be able to kill him. There was confidence in Ming Di's eyes. It was not confidence in his name. Instead, it was confidence in Lin Xian. With the other party's trump cards, the Yellow Spring sect might not be able to do anything to him. The 2 monarchs kept each other in check. Neither of them could advance. However, the Bridge of Helplessness still came. A group of experts came. They were the elders of the Yellow Spring sect. There were not many of them, but their strength was even more terrifying than the Hall Masters. There were also experts from the Underworld God Hall who came to stop them. However, the first to arrive were the 3 elders of the Yellow Spring sect. They were also 8-crown champions. However, their strength was much more terrifying than the 4 Hall Masters. The 3 of them stood in the sky, shattering the mountains and rivers below. Many people coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. Just this aura alone was enough to make them unable to resist. Greetings, elders. The people of the Yellow Spring sect were wild with joy when they saw them. Elders, please kill this kid. One of the elders wore a bracelet on his hand. He sent out a palm strike. This palm strike seemed to pierce through the universe. The experts of the Underworld God Hall felt as if they had been struck by lightning. They were sent flying by this palm wind. They coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. The Underworld child's expression changed drastically. The hand of the Yellow Spring. Lin Gongzi, be careful. There's a terrifying saint artifact above. Boom. The hand of the Yellow Spring pressed down with supreme power, shaking heaven and earth as it enveloped Lin Xian. This kid is dead for sure. However, Lin Xian raised his head to the sky and roared. His body was actually growing larger. He turned into a 1,000-meter-tall giant. The flames on his body kept jumping. Suns revolved around the 9-yang divine body. Although he had not cultivated it to greater mastery, it was already extremely terrifying. Among them, there were 7 real suns that revolved between heaven and earth. The flames, which were as strong as the sun, caused the forests in all regions to go crazy. Even the people of the Underworld God Hall frantically retreated. This was a power that restrained them. 9-yang divine fist. 9 suns descend. When Lin Xian punched out, 9 suns revolved around his fist, dancing wildly in the air. 7 real suns and 2 illusory suns collided with the hand of the Yellow Spring. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Violent power swept across all directions. Everyone frantically retreated. Some of the experts of the Yellow Spring sect were too slow. They were pierced by the 9-yang divine fire and turned into ashes. A shattering sound came from the sky. The hand of the Yellow Spring was charred black. It was enveloped by the 9-yang divine fire and was severely injured. The elder who attacked also let out a cold snort, and one of his arms disappeared without a trace. He was extremely shocked. This young man was so powerful that he could fight someone 2 levels above him. This was something that even the Crown Prince might not be able to do. Let's attack together. Upon seeing this, the 2 old men behind him walked up to him. One of them had terrifying white lightning on his body. The other took out a long spear that emitted a cold aura. An extremely terrifying light flickered on the long spear. He aimed it at Lin Xian. The 3 core elders were going to attack together. Chapter 57-55. When Underworld Child saw this scene, his scalp went numb. Although he was an imperial prince and had the inheritance of a great emperor, he was only the 6th crown king after all. It was very difficult for him to fight against one of these core elders. The reason for that was because these elders had all woken up from their deep slumber after countless years. They were people from tens of thousands of years ago, or even hundreds of thousands of years ago. They were definitely terrifying. One of them was already terrifying, let alone 3 of them attacking together. Divine ability, Netherworld Heaven Destroying Hand. Divine ability, Destructive Hell Thunder. Divine ability, Netherworld Spear. The 3 core elders used their peerless divine abilities. Terrifying attacks came from all directions, enveloping Lin Xian. This power was really too terrifying. There was no way to resist it at all. Most likely, only the 9 Crown King would be able to withstand it. Any 8 Crown King would definitely die in such a situation. Not to mention Lin Xian, who was only the 6th Crown King. Divine ability, 9 Suns Heaven Opening Fist. Lin Xian waved his fist again, carrying the power of the purest yang as he charged toward the Netherworld Heaven Destroying Hand. At the same time, he slashed out with his sword. The Chinkuan sword used all things as a sword. The shattered weapons around him quickly condensed, turning into a peerless divine sword that charged toward the netherworld spear. An earth-shattering explosion sounded. Tens of thousands of black holes appeared between heaven and earth, and violent winds swept across. The terrifying destructive hell thunder broke out of the encirclement and arrived in front of Lin Xian. Go to hell. The black-clothed elder's expression was cold. Lin Xian opened his mouth, and the yin-yang energy flew out, drawing a taiji diagram that rotated between heaven and earth. It blocked the destructive lightning. Slash! He roared, and his fighting spirit soared into the sky. The dragon soul in his body roared toward the sky. Lin Xian soared into the sky and blocked the three peerless divine abilities. He was going to fight back. No matter how strong you are. So what? My Dao is a heaven-defying Dao. Heaven-defying fist. He quickly charged toward Elder Netherworld. After the other party's Netherworld indestructible hand was blocked by the Nine Suns' divine fist, he faced the heaven-defying fist again. Although this fist did not have the purest yang energy, it contained a heaven-defying power. This aura seemed to want to tear the sky apart. Get out of my sight. That expert roared madly. However, before this punch, his body was mercilessly torn apart like a piece of paper. Blood rained down from the sky. A dragon shadow flickered beneath Lin Xian's feet as he turned to face the second elder. Heaven-defying sword technique, sword of destructive lightning. Lin Xian had just comprehended this sword art, and it was different from the heaven-defying fist. The heaven-defying fist carried an unyielding power. As for the heaven-defying sword law, it was a sword art that could cause the enemy to collapse. He was using the same power as his enemy, but he was 10 times stronger than his enemy. A terrifying bolt of sword chi appeared in Lin Xian's hand, transforming into a thunder god sword. With a slash of his sword, he split apart the destructive lightning and split the lightning elder's body apart. That elder didn't dare to believe that his opponent was capable of using such a sword technique. In the blink of an eye, the two elders were severely injured. The third elder's expression changed. He hurriedly waved his underworld spear to defend himself. Can you defend against it? 6 paths of reincarnation. Summon the heavenly realm. A pair of hands flew out from a mysterious eye. This time, half of a figure appeared. The jade-like hand slapped down and directly shattered the soul of the third elder. This time, he managed to kill an expert. Lin Xian's face was pale. The 3 attacks had consumed a lot of his energy. However, he had the sword world behind him, so he wasn't afraid of the consumption of energy. The people around him had all gone crazy. 3 moves, 1 dead and 2 seriously injured. What kind of power was this? Who exactly are you? The 2 injured elders roared crazily. Lin Xian snorted coldly. Go to hell and ask the king of hell. The immortal energy in his left eye suddenly jumped. Immortal technique, taiji transformation of yin and yang. The taiji diagram floated above Lin Xian's left eye and fused with the immortal energy seed. In an instant, a yin and yang aura surged out and turned into 2 great gods. One was the yang god, the other was the yin god. After they came out, they charged toward the 2 elders. Lin Xian had used similar attacks before, including now, with the power of the immortal energy seed. Their power had increased exponentially. It was as if 2 gods had really appeared. The 2 elders were originally seriously injured, but at this moment, they were also suppressed. They shouted crazily, "Why aren't you attacking yet? Haven't the reinforcements arrived yet?" The 4 hall masters hurriedly led their people to attack. The underworld god hall was not to be trifled with. More and more people arrived. However, at this moment, 7 more terrifying auras descended from the sky. Another 7 elders appeared. Great! The people of Yellow Springs sect finally saw hope. The 2 severely injured elders stared at Lin Xian. When we catch you later, we'll make you suffer a fate worse than death. They were murderous. Lin Xian frowned. It seemed that the power of the immortal energy seed alone was not enough to turn it into yin and yang. Since that was the case, he would create this unique technique again. With a wave of his hand, the yin and yang auras returned, and 2 huge figures stood beside him. Lin Xian grabbed, and the 2 of them turned into a taiji diagram, floating in front of him again. Lin Xian's left eye surged, and the power of the immortal energy seed fused into the black fish of the Taiji diagram. The divine fire seed between his eyebrows fused into the white fish of the Taiji diagram. This time, it contained the power of an immortal. It should be enough. Lin Xian wanted to create his own Dao, so everything was in the process of exploration. Go. I hope this unique technique won't disappoint me. After the Taiji diagram obtained the immortal energy, it rushed forward with the power of the divine fire seed. It turned into two figures again. The Yin god was incomparably mysterious. He wore battle armor and was surrounded by terrifying immortal light. The other kind of supremacy had divine fire jumping and war flame battle armor. It had the aura of the purest yang. This time, the strength of the two increased again. The two figures each had two swords in their hands. One was a sword of immortal light. The other was a sword of divine fire. Slash! Lin Xian shouted from behind. The two heavenly godlike figures raised their hands. The two giant swords slashed down from the sky. No! The two injured elders roared crazily. In the distant void, the 7 elders also shouted angrily, "How dare you!" Boom! The sword chi danced, tearing everything apart. The 2 elders were cut into pieces, their bodies and souls destroyed. Damn it! The 7 elders roared crazily. The other party really dared to kill in front of them. The 7 of them attacked together, forming a terrifying and destructive force that directly shattered the 2 figures. The aura of Yin and Yang shattered and turned into a Taiji diagram again, floating in front of Lin Xian. The light was a little dim. Lin Xian waved his sleeve and put away the Taiji diagram. He stared into the distance and frowned. 7 people came? To be honest, the pressure they gave him was really great. Kid, 13 of them came, and we blocked 6 for you, Underworld Child said. The Underworld God Hall also sent out their masters. However, the Yellow Spring sect seemed to have gone crazy. The number of masters who came out far exceeded their expectations. Therefore, on their side, they could only block 6. Lin Xian took a deep breath. Can you block 6? That's enough. I'll deal with the remaining 7. When the people of the Yellow Spring sect heard this, they all went crazy. The power of the 7 great elders was several times greater than that of the previous 3 great elders. How could this kid block them? Chapter 57-56. The appearance of the 7 great elders was like the 7 gods of hell. Their presence silenced the entire battlefield. The reason for that was because those 7 people were truly too terrifying. If they worked together, they could destroy everything. These 7 people could affect the outcome of the battle. The elites of the Underworld God Hall blocked the attack, but the remaining 6 people, they still had to stop the 7 great halls. Who else could stop the other elders? Lin Xian was probably the only one who could do that. However, would Lin Xian be able to fend them off by himself? The other elders also stood there. The leader of the group was a majestic man wearing hellish armor. He said coldly, "Young man, you're too arrogant. The 7 of us have all awakened from our ancient slumber. I'm the oldest. I'm from 90,000 years ago. I'm the newest, 30,000 years old. We're far above you. What do you have to compete with us? Kneel down and submit." The cold voice sounded like the roar of a god. It shook everyone's heart. The Underworld Child's expression was ugly. He knew that the other elders were right. These 7 people were truly too terrifying. If he had become the 7-crown king, he might have dared to fight. Unfortunately, he was only the 6-crown king. If he had known, he would have taken out his father's extreme weapon. Perhaps it could have stopped them. In the face of such pressure, Lin Xian merely smiled. So what if you're ancient? My Tao is a path that defies the heavens. Even the great emperors can't stop me, let alone you. The sword chi on Lin Xian's body became more and more terrifying. It raised the divine fire into fragments. He continued, "My name is Lin Xian. My title is Lin Wudi. Please remember this title. I'll be your nightmare." The 3 words Lin Wudi were like 3 divine swords that pierced into everyone's hearts. Many people's souls trembled. How confident was he? In this era of great battles, he dared to call himself invincible. Legend had it that this era was the era of gods and immortals. Countless great emperors had awakened from their slumber. For example, their Yellow Spring Great Emperor was a great emperor from 200,000 years ago. As for Emperor Hades, he was a great emperor from 300,000 years ago. The Bone Emperor was even more terrifying. It was said that he had been sleeping for 500,000 years. Even such an existence wouldn't dare to claim to be invincible. The young man in front of him was only 6 crown kings, yet he dared to call himself invincible? They thought it was funny, but no one could laugh. That was because Lin Xian's sword chi was too sharp. It was invincible. Just the remaining aura was enough to tear their bodies apart. The weapons in their hands seemed to be about to submit to the other party. What kind of sword light was this? What kind of person was this kid? Sword god? He was really arrogant. The 7 great elders on the other side had cold looks on their faces. You don't deserve to be called invincible. Kill him and bring back the wordless heavenly steel. This is the order of the great emperor. The leading man took a step forward, and a destructive aura spread out from under his feet. It transformed into a destructive demonic beast that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. On the other hand, Lin Xian raised his hand, and an extreme sword chi shot out like a giant dragon, pressing the destructive demonic beast to the ground. If you want to go there, you have to beat me. You're courting death. The 7 people on the opposite side rushed over quickly. They tore through the void like 7 bolts of lightning. With a raise of their hands, they unleashed terrifying divine powers and sword chi. Cold flames, violent lightning, and the water of the yellow springs filled the air. The strength of these 7 people was really too strong. They had been sleeping for tens of thousands of years so that they could shine in this era. Therefore, they wouldn't allow a young man to be arrogant in front of them. I'm invincible. Lin Xian also rushed over. At this moment, he also went all out. The power of reincarnation in his body stirred up the power of the divine flame seed, the power of the great dragon sword. In fact, Lin Xian directly used the illusion demon scripture. This was the final battle. He madly used the demonic power of the illusion demon scripture. After this battle, he would separate from the demons. Boom! The Capricorn rolled, and the demonic shadow appeared again. Its power covered the sky and swept across the area. Lin Xian charged in front of the 7 elders alone. A great battle broke out in an instant. It was terrifying. The surrounding people all retreated. What kind of power was this? This brat would be killed in an instant. The people of the Yellow Springs sect thought. However, in the blink of an eye, time passed. Not only did Lin Xian not die, but he became more and more courageous as he fought. Was he going to fight against the 7 elders by himself? Why? Impossible? The 7 elders were also furious. They roared at the sky, feeling challenged. If they couldn't take down the other party, they would lose face. They might as well kill themselves. The laws on the 7 of them continued to erupt, and their combat strength also increased rapidly. The demonic shadow behind Lin Xian became more and more solid. This demonic shadow had killed so many powerhouses and absorbed so much power. It became extremely terrifying. With a raise of its hand, it enveloped 2 elders. As for the remaining 5, Lin Xian fought them all by himself. I'm invincible. Lin Xian roared angrily. He used all kinds of ultimate techniques and divine powers. He created his heaven-defying technique and attacked from time to time. The 5 elders were beaten until they roared crazily and counterattacked crazily. Lin Xian was also injured. He was hit by a punch, and his body was shattered. Then, a white lightning bolt pierced through his body, and even his bones appeared. However, the more he fought, the braver he became. With a wave of his hand, the sword chi was like a dragon. With a claw, he tore an elder apart. That elder's internal organs were shattered, and a bloody hole appeared on his body. He screamed and retreated. Lin Xian turned around again, and his gaze pierced through the head of another elder like an arrow. As for his body, he received 2 more palm strikes. However, he used this force to forcefully split an elder in half. This was a difficult battle. Both sides were evenly matched, and it was like a fierce battle. It was extremely miserable, and blood pierced through the 9 heavens. These were all supreme experts. They were all super mighty figures. Every drop of blood could shatter everything. If it weren't for the mysterious bridge of helplessness, this place would have turned into an endless black hole. Damn it, big brother, use your trump card. The eyes of the leading armored man also burst out with an extremely cold light. In the next moment, he shouted angrily, "Yellow Spring Immortality Technique." Boom. His voice suddenly split open, and a self-destructive force swept out, charging directly at Lin Xian. Lin Xian's pupils constricted. Were these people trying to die together? He snorted coldly and slashed through heaven and earth with his sword. However, this self-destructive power was really too strong, and he was still affected. Otherwise, it wouldn't be over. The other three elders rushed over and roared loudly, "Yellow Spring Destruction Technique." Boom, boom, boom. Three self-destructive forces hit Lin Xian, directly engulfing Lin Xian. Not good, run. The underworld child also went crazy and quickly fled. The others were terrified, and their scalps went numb. 4 top 8 crown champions had self-destructed. This power, even 9 crown king wouldn't be able to withstand it. Lunatics. The people of the Yellow Spring sect were all lunatics. The people of the underworld temple were pale, and their bodies trembled. Great, they were dead this time. The people of the Yellow Spring sect all laughed loudly. As for the 4 elders who had self-destructed their bodies, they actually grew back in the Yellow Spring. Chapter 57-57. The Yellow Spring Destruction Technique was their super trump card. This was a peerless divine ability created by the Yellow Spring Great Emperor and passed it to them. Every time they self-destructed, they would be severely injured and even affect their martial arts foundation. However, it wouldn't kill them. Now that they saw how powerful Lin Xian was, they couldn't do anything about it. Therefore, they finally decided to use this terrifying forbidden technique. From the looks of it, the results were very good. Under this terrifying power, that brat should be dead for sure. These elders had actually come back to life. Underworld Child's face turned ugly when he saw this scene. The powerhouses of the Underworld God Hall also narrowed their eyes. What kind of divine ability is this? It's too powerful. After self-destructing, they could actually come back to life. They were dumbfounded. It seemed that Lin Xian had really died. This is the result of daring to go against the Yellow Spring sect. A cold voice resounded in all directions. Cough, cough. Suddenly, coughing sounds came from the black hole in front of them. Then, a figure walked over. This figure was stained with blood and was abnormally terrifying. It was Lin Xian. Lin Xian walked out and held the void. His face was pale. "I didn't expect you to have such a trump card. It's indeed beyond my expectations. You should be proud to be able to hurt me. In this world, apart from the Great Emperor, there are really too few people who can hurt me. However, the game is over. Because you have really angered me. I didn't use my trump card before because I wanted to use you to derive my divine ability. Now, it seemed that there was no need for that. Let's decide the outcome with one move." Lin Xian's voice sounded. Everyone turned their heads to look. This kid was actually still alive. That's impossible. Are my eyes playing tricks on me? The people of the Yellow Spring sect went crazy. The expressions of the 4 elders who self-destructed also changed drastically. How terrifying was the destructive power just now? How could the other party still be alive? Even the 9 crown kings should be dead. What's going on with this guy's physique? Their expressions were extremely unsightly. Named dumbfounded. Still alive? He was shocked and terrified. At the same time, he heaved a sigh of relief. This meant that they still had hope. So what if he was alive? Our Yellow Spring sect is not something you can provoke. Last time, you were lucky, right? Let's see how you're going to dodge my Yellow Spring's destruction art again. The man in the lead snorted coldly. He would also leave. This time, the 7 elders were all standing in the sky. They wanted to use all of them to destroy themselves. Boom boom 7 figures dashed over at high speed. Beside Lin Xian, their bodies split apart. Destructive power erupted, wanting to engulf Lin Xian. Lin Xian didn't dodge at all. Looking at this scene, he coldly laughed. In the next instant, He waved his hand and took out the heaven-devouring jar. Then, he slammed his palm forward. It was over. Following Lin Xian's voice, a terrifying black vortex appeared. It devoured the entire world. What is this? The broken bodies of the 7 elders hadn't completely disappeared. When they sensed this aura, their expressions all turned incomparably ugly. It was the aura of an extreme path. It was an extreme path weapon. Damn it! How did he have such a thing? Run away. The 7 of them were truly stunned. An extreme path weapon, the weapon of a great emperor. No matter how strong they were, they couldn't fight against it. However, this time, the leader didn't bring Emperor Ming's weapon with him. If this kid wasn't a crown prince, where did he get an extreme path weapon? These people had completely gone crazy. They used the Yellow Springs destruction art to the extreme. Because they knew that they couldn't escape. They could only kill the other party before the extreme path power came down. Boom. However, Lin Xian's speed was simply too fast. His extreme Dao might instantly envelop the area. It collided with the extreme path power of the 7 super mighty figures. An earth-shattering explosion sounded and spread in all directions. The surrounding people were sent flying. Many people from the Yellow Spring sect turned into a bloody mist in an instant. The people of the Underworld God Hall also quickly retreated. The Underworld child retreated into the distance, terrified. Extreme path power? That's right, it was indeed an extreme path weapon. This kid really had a lot of trump cards. However, he could only use a portion of the extreme path power. As a crown prince, he knew that the power required to use an extreme path weapon was really too much. Except for the great emperor who had the power to surpass everything. The others didn't have enough power to completely revive it. In front of them, the explosions kept erupting. It was not until a long time later that they showed signs of subsiding. Everyone's hearts were in their mouths. They didn't know how this battle would turn out. In the storm, a figure walked out. His body was stained with blood, but he looked as if he had seen a god. His figure was tall and straight, and his sword chi soared into the sky. Beside him, there was a jar that kept bobbing up and down. It was that kid. The experts of the Underworld God Hall exclaimed, Lin Wudi is still alive. Did he win? The people of the Yellow Spring sect were in despair. No. The 7 elders, the top 7 mighty figures, had fallen just like that? They couldn't bear it. These were all 8 crown kings, and among them, they were very terrifying. They couldn't resist the extreme path power. Lin Xian waved his sleeve, and the black vortexes in the sky disappeared. Only the sea of blood continued to descend from the sky. They were formed after the deaths of the 7 great elders. Lin Xian, on the other hand, stood above the sea of blood. He was like a sword god, suppressing everything. The Yellow Spring sect is just awesome. No one can stop me. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Xian coughed up 2 mouthfuls of blood. Previously, he had also been ambushed and injured. That's great. Will this brat also die? The remaining people of the Yellow Spring sect still had a glimmer of hope in their hearts. But soon, they fell into despair again. Because the 2 mouthfuls of blood that Lin Xian coughed up turned into blood swords that filled the sky. In the Qingkuan sword technique, everything in the world was a sword. Lin Xian's blood turned into the most terrifying sword of killing that rushed over. No. After seeing the other party's means, how could the people of the Yellow Spring sect dare to continue fighting? They all fled. However, it was already too late. The blood-colored sword chi that filled the sky swept across the world. It pierced through one figure after another. Large amounts of corpses fell from the sky. They all fell into the abyss on both sides of the bridge of helplessness. After falling into the abyss, they would not enter the cycle of reincarnation. These people were very miserable. In the end, the people of the Yellow Spring sect all disappeared. Only Lin Xian stood there. His face was pale, but no one dared to look at him directly. Even the people of the Underworld God Hall were incomparably terrified. This guy was really too terrifying. The Underworld child's body also trembled. The other party was stronger than him, and much stronger. Because he had to face the terrifying lineup of the Yellow Spring sect. He couldn't resist at all. However, the other party did it, and even killed all of them. It was really hard to believe. Especially in the end, the other party's blood could turn into a peerless, immortal divine ability. Was this guy creating his own Tao? Chapter 57-58. Taking a deep breath, Lin Xian took out a drop of the divine spring of life from the sword world. After swallowing it, the cracks on his body quickly healed, and some of his strength also recovered. Then, he walked forward. Underworld Child, who was behind him, was also shocked when he saw this. This guy's recovery power was so strong. Did he have any weakness? Your Highness, let's hurry up and follow him, the powerhouses behind him said. The group also walked over. The further they went on the bridge of helplessness, the stronger the aura of death and pressure. The people of the Underworld Temple were facing a great enemy. Beside Lin Xian, there was a terrifying dragon-shaped sword intent that formed a sea of swords. It covered him, and wherever the sword chi passed, it could destroy everything. No, we can't go forward. Underworld Child and the others all stopped. Looking at the phantom of the heavenly steel in the distance, they shook their heads and sighed. Damn it, that guy didn't wait for us. The powerhouses of the Underworld Temple gritted their teeth. However, they didn't dare to scold him. The scene of the other party, slaughtering everyone, was still deeply imprinted in their minds. However, what shocked them was that he didn't use the power of an extreme weapon. He could walk in. That sword chi was also extremely sharp. Lin Xian didn't care about the people behind him. He walked forward with irresistible force. Finally, he came to the front. There was a heavenly steel there. Its surface was smooth, and there were no words. Was this the wordless heavenly steel? Lin Xian tried to use his Rinnegan to investigate. The power of the 6 paths of reincarnation enveloped the other party, but there seemed to be a layer of light on the wordless heavenly steel. Like a mirror, it directly bounced back the 6 paths of reincarnation. Lin Xian's figure swayed, and he dodged the attack. He was surprised. What a mysterious heavenly steel. In order to avoid trouble, Lin Xian directly swallowed the wordless heavenly steel with the sky-swallowing jar. After all, who knew if the Yellow Spring sect would make a comeback? In addition, there was also the White Bone Cave. He couldn't be careless. After putting away the wordless heavenly steel, Lin Xian turned and said, "Let's go." Underworld Child nodded. He took out a black box. After opening it, a boundless black aura enveloped them. They formed a teleportation array and teleported them away. With a whoosh, the bridge of helplessness became empty once more. Only gusts of chilly wind blew past. In the endless void, 2 figures stood facing each other. Both of them were engulfed in terrifying divine flames. They were the Netherworld Emperor and the Yellow Spring Great Emperor. The 2 of them kept each other in check and did not make a move. This was because if the 2 great emperors were to fight, the sky would fall and the earth would shatter. In fact, it was highly likely that hell would be completely destroyed. Suddenly, Emperor Hades's eyes flashed. He sensed that Ming Ming and the others from the Underworld God Hall had returned. Did he succeed? His lips curled up. Since you don't intend to make a move, there's no point in staying any longer. Farewell. With that, Emperor Hades turned and left. The Great Yellow Spring Emperor was taken aback. He instantly recalled something. Could it be that his men had failed? He carefully sensed the situation and found that the soul cards of all the people he sent out were all shattered. Had they all fallen? Including those few top-level 8 Crown Kings? Damn it! The Great Yellow Spring Emperor roared at the sky as if he had gone mad. The water of the Yellow Spring covered heaven and earth. The entire hell was affected. Some families were directly covered by the Yellow Spring and turned into white bones. Countless living beings prostrated themselves on the ground. Spare us, Great Emperor. We are willing to submit to you, Great Yellow Spring Emperor. Please spare us, Great Emperor. However, it was useless. When the Great Emperor was angry, millions of corpses would fall. It was like the end of the world in hell. On the other side, Emperor Hades had returned to the Underworld God Hall. He activated the Emperor-level array formation to protect the Underworld God Hall. Moreover, he was sitting there, not afraid of anyone coming. After returning, he said, "How was it? Father, We got it. The underworld child was extremely excited. Emperor Hades was also surprised when he heard that. He looked at Lin Xian. Lin Xian waved his hand, and the heaven-devouring jar appeared. A sky steel appeared from within. The sky steel was extremely mysterious. There were no words on it. Emperor Hades was also excited after reading it. He reached out his hand and wanted to grab it. Lin Xian's voice sounded, "If you want to comprehend it, fine. I'll give you 10 days. After 10 days, return the sky steel to me. If you don't return it, you'll have to bear the consequences." After saying that, Lin Xian found a palace and went into seclusion to recover. This guy was too arrogant. The elders of the underworld god hall were angry. How dare he be so rude to their great emperor? Great emperor, please punish those brats. What could he do if they didn't return it to him? They snorted. Emperor Hades' eyes flickered. He shook his head slightly. This kid is easy to deal with. However, he has a group of experts behind him. I don't want to be enemies with those people. All right, go back and recover. This time, you've done a great job. I'll reward you handsomely. Go and receive your rewards. Yes, thank you, great emperor. These experts were extremely excited. Everyone left. Only the underworld child remained. He was truly shocked. Even his father, the emperor, did not dare to touch this brat so easily. Father, what secrets does this sky steel hold? If it really contains a supreme primordial art, then, do you still want to give it to him? Emperor Hades snorted. If I can't comprehend it in 10 days, it'll be very difficult for me to comprehend it again. Moreover, this was only one sky steel. There were 3 sky steels in total. Obtaining one was not a big deal. He would definitely continue to stay in hell. In fact, even if he obtained 2 sky steels, people from the realm of gods would come to the Hadal Serenity. Why not work with them and use the power of the realm of gods to see the secrets of the sky steel? All right, you should go and cultivate. This time, you'll know that there's always someone better than you. I hope your confidence won't be shattered. Instead, you'll continue to move forward. Thank you for your teachings, Father. I'll work hard. The underworld child bowed his head deeply. Indeed, he had always been high and mighty in hell. He thought that no one was more powerful than him in terms of bloodline and ability. As long as he was given time, he would be able to overcome everything. In fact, he was even prepared to attack the deity ground in the future. However, Lin Xian's arrival was simply too much of a shock to him. He still had a long way to go. With a wave of his sleeve, Emperor Hades hurried off to study the sky steel. The underworld temple quieted down. Meanwhile, the entire hell was in a state of rage. The Yellow Spring Great's anger had caused hell's doomsday. At first, no one knew who it was. Who dared to anger a great emperor? Then, the news finally spread. It turned out that the Yellow Spring sect had sent a large number of experts. Among them were the 7 halls and 7 top elders, including the 8-crowned king. However, all of them had died. Not a single one of them had left alive. When the news spread, the entire hell was stunned. The Yellow Spring sect was one of the top sects in hell. The Yellow Spring Great had single-handedly founded it. Within the sect, there were countless experts, as many as the clouds. Any one of the 7 great halls was more than enough to sweep through the other clans. If the 7 halls worked together, they could sweep through everything. In addition, there were 7 top elders. Such a lineup was simply invincible. Who could defeat them? Chapter 57-59. Who was it that did it? Countless people were shocked. Who could severely injure the Yellow Spring sect? Not long after, the news spread from the Underworld God Hall. For a moment, hell was in an uproar. Was it the Underworld God Hall? As I said, other than the Underworld God Hall and the White Bone Cave, no one else is a match for them. No, I heard that the one who attacked this time was not a powerhouse from the Underworld God Hall, but a young man. Not the Underworld child? What? If it wasn't the Crown Prince, then who could it be? Was there such a hidden powerhouse in the Underworld God Hall? It was said that it was a young man called Woody. Everyone was shocked. Finally, some more news came from the Underworld God Hall. This was intentional by the Underworld God Hall. Even if they didn't say it, the Yellow Spring sect would come to fight. It was better for them to say it in advance and deal a blow to the Yellow Spring sect's momentum. They found out that it was a person called Lin Wudi. It was said that he was very young, and even his name was defeated by him. Later, he led the Underworld God Hall to defeat the Yellow Spring sect. It was said that in that battle, the world trembled, and the top powerhouses of the Yellow Spring sect fell at his hands. No way, right? Such a person was really too strong, and he was still so young. Could it be that his talent and bloodline surpassed the Crown Prince's? No one could imagine. At this moment, the families and sects in hell were discussing crazily, because it was too shocking. All along, they had thought that the strongest person in the younger generation was the Crown Prince. But now, there was someone who surpassed the Crown Prince. How could they not be shocked? After the young geniuses heard this, their faces were filled with shock and despair. As for the older generation, they gasped. It wasn't just the younger generation who couldn't defeat him. Even those older powerhouses and super mighty figures were no match for him. Such a person was very likely to become a great emperor in the future. In the dark forest, after the people of the Luo family heard this, they were also stunned. Wasn't Lin Gongzi the title of Lin Wudi? They had heard from Luo that Lin Xian had participated in the Dao-seeking meeting, and he had fought everywhere and defeated many geniuses. What else did he call himself? Lin Wudi. They didn't believe it before, but the news that came now shocked them. Not only had Lin Xian defeated a genius, but he had also killed countless experts from the Yellow Spring sect. The people of the Luo clan gasped. The person they had received before was actually such a terrifying person. As for Luo Tianyu, he was so frightened that he fell to his knees. Before this, he had actually looked down on such an expert. Now that he thought about it, he was so regretful that his intestines turned green. No, he had to apologize. He had to apologize in person as soon as possible. "All right, little sister, come with me." Luo Tianyu was afraid that he would be slapped to death by Lin Xian. Thus, he personally brought Luo to the Underworld God Hall. Luo was very happy because she could see Lin Xian again. The two of them immediately set off. The people of the Yellow Spring sect were furious. Damn it, who spread this news? Damn it, it must be the Underworld God Hall. Lin Wudi, right? You're dead meat. Our Yellow Spring sect will definitely kill you. I'll make you wish you were dead. Countless frenzied roars could be heard. However, they did not dare to act rashly. Previously, they had sent out such a powerful lineup, but all of them had failed. This time, they would probably need the Great Emperor to act personally. The Yellow Spring Great Emperor was even more murderous. The deaths of those people were nothing to him. As a top-tier Great Emperor, he could summon countless people to come and join his sect with a wave of his hand. What angered him the most was that the wordless sky steel had been snatched away by Lin Wudi. This was a treasure left behind by an Archean expert. It definitely contained a shocking secret. Therefore, he had to get it. However, with his strength, he could deal with Ming Di. No problem. However, it would be difficult to defeat Ming Di. After all, his strength was similar to Ming Di's. Neither of them could do anything to the other. It seemed that he had to call Whitebone Cave. Although he was unwilling, he still went to Whitebone Cave. At the same time, the people of the Yellow Spring sect were also preparing. Although a group of experts had fallen, they were still the sect of a great emperor and had a deep foundation. At this moment, they were preparing to take revenge. Some of the experts' eyes were filled with murderous intent. Lin Wudi, just you wait. I will use your head as a sacrifice to my dead sect members. These people were filled with murderous intent. The people of Whitebone Cave naturally received the news. They were extremely shocked. The wordless sky steel had appeared. To be honest, they were too shocked. After all, they had been searching for it. However, some of the elders' faces were ugly. They sighed. Their emperor was not in Whitebone Cave. He had gone out. He did not even tell them where to go. He only told them to guard the sect and not let anyone in. They wanted to contact Bone King, but they could not do so. Perhaps Bone King would only appear when Whitebone Cave was in a life and death situation. In fact, Bone King could not be blamed. Bone King had also gone to search for the wordless sky steel. This news was extremely important. He and the green-robed Great Emperor joined forces and left without alerting anyone. They had to tell others. If Ming Di or the Yellow Spring Great Emperor searched their souls, the news would be leaked. Therefore, Bone King was very careful. Now that he had not returned, he naturally did not know the situation here. The people of White Bone Cave sighed. It seemed that when Bone King returned, they would have to pass the news to him immediately. However, they did not wait for Bone King. Instead, another person came. It was the Yellow Spring Great Emperor. The yellow spring water filled the sky and surrounded the place. The people of White Bone Cave were on guard. The first elder walked out. He was a blood-red skeleton wearing a cape. At this moment, he bowed respectfully. Supreme Yellow Spring Great Emperor, may I know what brings you here? Behind him, the experts from White Bone Cave also bowed respectfully. They did not dare to be careless in front of a great emperor. I'm here for Bone King. Tell him to come out. The Yellow Spring Great Emperor stood with his hands behind his back. Below, the elders of White Bone Cave were shocked. The first elder said, Yellow Spring Great Emperor, unfortunately, Bone King is in seclusion. I'm afraid he can't meet you. Humph, how dare you lie to me? The Yellow Spring Great Emperor snorted coldly. Below, countless elders spat out blood. The bones in their bodies were cracked, and they were so scared that their bodies were trembling. The first elder braced himself and said, Yellow Spring Great Emperor, please calm down. I did lie to you, but I'm right about one thing. You can't meet Bone King. Because he's not in our White Bone Cave. Did he leave? The Yellow Spring Great Emperor frowned. This time, I'm going to join hands with him to go to the Underworld God Temple and snatch the wordless heavenly steel. Why doesn't he come out? The first elder said, He's really not here. The Yellow Spring Great Emperor checked and frowned. Where did the Bone Emperor go? Damn it, he did not have much time. He was not sure if Underworld God had comprehended the wordless heavenly steel. If Underworld God had found clues, then he would have no chance. Therefore, he must attack the Underworld God Temple as soon as possible. With a wave of his sleeve, the Yellow Spring Great Emperor left. Below, the experts of White Bone Cave were shocked. Is the Yellow Spring Great Emperor going to take action? Unfortunately, their Bone King was not here. The first elder said, All those who are 7-crown king and above, come here. I have something to announce. Chapter 5760. The elders of the White Bone Cave gathered together. Someone asked, First elder, what's the matter? The first elder said, Now that the Bone Emperor is not here, we need to make a decision whether to join forces with the Emperor of Netherworld. This is related to the wordless heavenly steel. If we can get it, perhaps the Bone Emperor will reward us greatly. I think it's feasible. Some elders nodded. The others discussed for a while, and finally, they all nodded in agreement. Well, let's do it. The first elder said, I'll take a group of people there. Second elder, you're in charge of guarding the sect to prevent others from attacking. Next, the people of the White Bone Cave began to move. The first elder led a group of people to the Yellow Spring sect. They joined forces with the Emperor of Netherworld. Although the Bone Emperor didn't come, the Emperor of Netherworld still agreed. After all, these people also represented the White Bone Cave. Two great emperor clans against the Underworld Temple. The pressure on the other side would increase a lot. At the same time, a cold, murderous intent appeared in the eyes of the Emperor of Netherworld. He wanted to see who it was. Who dared to kill so many experts of the Underworld Temple? Lin Wudi, right? So arrogant. I want to see who you are. This time, he had another purpose, and that was to kill Lin Wudi. Thinking of this, his eyes bloomed with a cold, murderous intent. This time, the losses of the Yellow Spring sect were really too serious. The Underworld Temple. Lin Xian temporarily went into seclusion. He quietly cultivated and recovered. With the power of the Sword World, Lin Xian recovered in a few days. However, he didn't go out. Instead, he continued to stay in the Sword World. Previously, his doppelgangers had already dug out some things. At this moment, Lin Xian wanted to see what it was. Several doppelgangers continued to dig. Lin Xian could already see a part of it clearly. It was a sword. Although it was only a small portion, it was enough to shock Lin Xian. This sword was definitely extraordinary. Thinking of the power of the universe ring, Lin Xian became excited. Although the universe ring was good, he was a swordsman after all. It was not convenient to use it. If he could dig out an ancient sword, he would be able to increase his combat prowess. What kind of treasured sword was it? Lin Xian also began to move. With his participation, the speed of the operation also increased slightly. Finally, he dug out the ancient sword. Its surface was covered in rust, making it look like an ordinary iron sword. If he left it outside, no one would give it a second glance. However, as a top-notch swordsman, Lin Xian could sense that this was only the surface. The real sword was a peerless treasure sword. Lin Xian grabbed it in his hand and waved it gently. He was overjoyed. It danced in the air. The power of this sword was very strong. It was even stronger than the Hell Sword from before. It was even more terrifying than the Great Calamity. At this time, some rust on the iron sword fell off, revealing a cold light. Lin Xian glanced at the sword hilt and saw two words carved on it. Immortal Slaying. Immortal Exterminating Sword. Lin Xian whispered. However, the dragon was shocked. He didn't expect this sword to be here. Do you know? Lin Xian was surprised. The great dragon sword spirit said, I do. The owner of this sword was a man who knew everything about heaven and earth. He was very terrifying. Moreover, he was also a member of the God realm. Now, this sword was buried here. It must have been lost in the battle with the otherworld heavenly king. The dragon sword spirit knew some ancient secrets. Of course, he didn't know everything, because the dragon sword was also broken back then. Moreover, each master of the great dragon sword had been separated by a long period of time. Therefore, there were some things that even the dragon sword spirit didn't know. However, this was enough for Lin Xian. This news shocked Lin Xian. In the past, there had also been a huge gap in the God realm. Moreover, it was not the descendant of the dragon sword spirit. This sword belonged to the other party. The universe ring and the fairy-slaying sword? Lin Xian was overjoyed. He didn't know how powerful the fairy-slaying sword was. The universe ring could kill the 8-crown king instantly. This immortal slaying sword was probably equally terrifying. However, Lin Xian cared more about the material of the fairy-slaying sword. As a peerless swordsman, he lacked a suitable sword. Now that he had the fairy-slaying sword, it was perfect. Next, Lin Xian continued to study in the sword world. He created his universe sword technique and the heaven-defying sword. These were all part of his inheritance, the heaven-defying art. On the other side, Ming Di was also in seclusion. Terrifying aura surrounded him. A divine fire enveloped the wordless heavenly steel. However, the wordless heavenly steel was too mysterious. Some hazy scenes appeared on it. They were too blurry. Ming Di tried many times, but the scene flashed by. Even his soul couldn't capture it. It seemed that one wordless heavenly steel was not enough. Counting the time, there were still 3 days before he had to return it to that kid. In the next 3 days, he would do his best to see more of those flashing scenes. It would be best if he could imprint them deeply in his mind. Ming Di continued to activate the divine fire. At the same time, 2 people from the underworld temple came. They were Luo Tianyu and Luo Luo. Luo Tianyu was extremely nervous. He asked the elder of the underworld temple, "Where is Lin Gongzi?" The elder was surprised. "You know Lin Gongzi?" Lin Xian was now an important guest of the underworld temple. Luo Luo said, "Of course, he is my big brother Lin." To actually address the other party as big brother, the elder was even more astonished. He respectfully invited the 2 of them in. He said, "Lin Gongzi is in seclusion. I will try to call him for you." The old man sent out a message. Inside the sword world, Lin Xian sensed that the array formation outside was shaking. Was someone looking for him? He walked out of the sword world and found a voice transmission talisman outside. After that, Lin Xian wondered if Luo Luo had come. He opened the array formation. "Come in." His voice rang out. The elder brought the 2 of them in. "Big brother Lin." Luo Luo was extremely happy. After seeing Lin Xian again, her little face turned red. Lin Xian also smiled and said, "Little girl, long time no see." The two of them were very familiar with each other. Elder Zhang was also shocked. He quietly retreated. Luo Tianyu, on the other hand, looked extremely embarrassed. He was both afraid and nervous. After a long time, he finally mustered up the courage to say, "Lin Gongzi, I have offended you before. Please spare me this time." Lin Xian stopped smiling and looked at the other party. Suddenly, Luo Tianyu felt as if he had been struck by lightning. What kind of gaze was this? Before, he had not sensed it. But now, Lin Xian didn't hide his aura. He felt a gaze, like a divine sword, piercing through his body. Luo Luo was also shocked. However, she shook Lin Xian's arm and said, "Big brother Lin, please spare my brother this time. Okay?" He didn't mean to. "Fine," Lin Xian said. "For Luo Luo's sake, I'll spare you this time." However, there was no second time. Luo Tianyu heaved a sigh of relief. He quickly bowed. "Don't worry, young master. I won't dare to do it again." He didn't dare to offend Lin Xian in his life. Boom. At this moment, the underworld god temple shook. A terrifying power pierced through heaven and earth. The expressions of the people of the underworld god temple changed. Luo Luo almost fell, but fortunately, she was supported by Lin Xian. Lin Xian raised his head and looked into the distance, frowning. Luo Tianyu was even more shocked. Someone dares to attack the underworld god temple? Chapter 5761. Who was it? Underworld child rushed over. The experts of the Underworld God Hall rushed out one after another. They yelled coldly. Outside the Underworld God Hall, the aura of the Yellow Spring fell. The Yellow Spring Emperor stood in the sky. His martial monarch realm strength descended and penetrated the formation. It was the Yellow Spring Emperor. The elders of the Underworld God Hall felt their scalps go numb. Luo Tianyu and Luo Luo also stood at the entrance of the palace and looked into the distance. Luo Tianyu's body trembled under the pressure of this power. Luo Luo's expression also changed. What a terrifying person. He was like a god. Lin Xian frowned. He knew that the emperor was here to take the wordless sky steel. He said, "It's too dangerous here. You should leave. Brother Lin, let's go together." Luo Luo was also worried. Lin Xian shook his head. "He's coming for me." Luo Luo's face was pale. Luo Tianyu's pupils constricted. A great emperor was coming for Lin Xian. This was a deadly situation. However, seeing Lin Xian so calm and confident, Luo Tianyu was even more confused. Did this young man think that he could fight against a great emperor? At this moment, Emperor Hades also came out of seclusion. He snorted. "Yellow Spring, you've gone too far. Do you think I'm afraid of you?" The terrifying great emperor power also rushed into the distance. The two powerful forces collided, shaking the sky and the earth. Emperor Hades came out. Luo Tianyu was stunned. He was a core disciple of the Underworld God Hall. However, he had never seen Emperor Hades before. This was the first time. The other experts of the Underworld God Hall also heaved a sigh of relief. "Greetings, Emperor Hades." They all bowed. Emperor Hades walked forward and waved his sleeve. The wordless sky steel flew to Lin Xian. "I didn't understand it. Here, take it back." His voice sounded in Lin Xian's ears. Lin Xian froze and waved his hand. Even a great emperor couldn't understand it? Luo Tianyu was even more shocked. Lin Xian was talking to Emperor Hades. This was unbelievable. He felt that Lin Xian was even more mysterious than he had imagined. Who exactly was the other party? Now, it was already too late to leave. They should have sealed off the Underworld God Hall. But don't worry, I'll send you away when the two martial monarchs start fighting. Don't come back, do you hear me? Luo's face was pale. Luo Tianyu nodded. Don't worry, Lin Gongzi. I know what to do. They knew that the two of them wouldn't be of much help here. It was even possible that Lin Xian would be implicated. Lin Xian took a deep breath, put away the wordless heavenly steel, and walked forward. In the sky, The Yellow Spring Emperor looked down. He said coldly, "It's impossible for you to take the wordless heavenly steel for yourself. Hand it over, and we can study it together." Mingdi laughed. "What? If they could not snatch it, it would be impossible for them to comprehend it together." "Humph, I didn't come alone this time. The White Bone Cave wants to comprehend it too." The Yellow Spring Emperor's voice rang out, and the Underworld God Hall members' expressions turned ugly. Was another martial monarch coming? If so, the Underworld God Hall would not be able to resist at all. Mingdi laughed. "Don't try to fool me. I didn't sense the Bone Emperor's energy. The Bone Emperor is not here, but we represent the White Bone Cave." The White Bone Cave's Grand Elder and the others walked over and stood in the sky. Mingdi sneered. "You're just an ant. How dare you talk to me? Get lost." The people from the White Bone Cave felt their blood boil as they were all sent flying. The Yellow Spring Emperor sent out a stream of yellow spring fire to block the energy. Then he said, "Last chance, Mingdi. Will you give it to me or not?" Mingdi laughed. "What a pity. The wordless heavenly steel is not mine. I can't answer you." The Yellow Spring Great Emperor was taken aback. At this moment, he saw a figure walking over to Mingdi's side. It was not the underworld child, but a young man. Who was it? He stared at the young man. Could this person be the legendary invincible Lin? Did he have the wordless heavenly steel? His eyes were filled with terrifying murderous intent. Who was Lin Wudi? "Get over here and die." The Yellow Spring Emperor's cold voice rang out. Behind him, Luo Luo and Luo Xin's faces were pale. Lin Xian had really been targeted by a martial monarch. Even the people from the Underworld God Hall were incomparably frightened. Lin Xian said, "I'm standing right here. Can't you see? How could a martial monarch have such poor eyesight?" Lin Xian's words drove everyone crazy. Even the Underworld child swallowed hard. Even he did not dare to be rude to a martial monarch. Was this kid mocking a martial monarch? In the sky, the Yellow Spring Emperor's face darkened. "How arrogant and insolent. Looks like you don't know the consequences of offending a martial monarch. Today, I'll let you experience it." His gaze turned into two yellow spring swords and shot toward Lin Xian. Lin Xian stood there, unmoved. The void around him crumbled and the earth cracked. Lin Xian's divine body suppressed the 9 heavens. Of course, he was not strong enough to fight against a martial monarch. However, Lin Xian had made up his mind that the Underworld Emperor would not stand by and do nothing. As expected, when the two yellow spring swords came near Lin Xian, the Underworld Emperor grabbed them. The Underworld Emperor grabbed them. "You're a martial monarch. Don't you think it's embarrassing to attack a junior? If you want to fight, I'll accompany you." The Underworld Emperor rose into the air. He had already teamed up with Lin Xian. How could he let Lin Xian die here? If he did, the deity realm's anger would envelop him. Of course, if Lin Xian was not killed by a martial monarch, then he would not be held responsible. At that time, he would even take back the wordless sky steel. Even the deity realm's people could not blame him. He only needed to hold the Yellow Spring Great Emperor back. The rest would depend on Lin Xian's strength. Lin Xian did not know what the Underworld Emperor was thinking. He did not need to know. Without the threat of a martial monarch, Lin Xian was not afraid of the others. He looked at the Yellow Spring Sect's experts and sneered. "You people really don't know what's good for you. The 8 crown champions that came last time were all killed by me. Do you want to die too? You're all people who have awakened from tens of thousands of years ago. It's not easy for you to live until now. I'll give you a chance. Kowtow and submit, and I'll spare your lives." Lin Xian's words rang through the 9 heavens. The Yellow Spring Sect's people were furious. A young ant dared to be so arrogant. Despicable. Kill him and avenge our people. And us. The people of White Bone Cave also walked out. They would not stand idly by. They had to suppress the other party. It was very likely that the wordless sky steel was on him. The people of the Underworld Temple also rushed out. "Do you think we don't exist?" The two sides faced each other. Their auras collided. Terrifying cracks spread throughout the 9 heavens. The two martial monarchs rushed into the clouds and engaged in an emperor-level battle. That was the battlefield of the martial monarchs. No one could get close. Lin Xian came to the front. He looked around. He said coldly, "Who dares to fight me?" Chapter 5762. Who dares to fight me? Facing the powerhouses of the heavens, how confident was he? I'll do it. This kid is too arrogant. Let me do it. I'll fight. One after another, angry shouts sounded. In the blink of an eye, many figures charged towards Lin Xian. However, Lin Xian sneered. With a wave of his sleeve, sword chi danced in the sky. The people who came were all pierced. A bunch of ants. You're not my match? Lin Xian's gaze swept across again. Who will fight me? Everyone was silent and terrified. Although this person was arrogant, he was really too strong. They had to send out the top powerhouses to fight him one-on-one. I'll fight you. The first elder of the White Bone Cave walked over. This was a blood-red skeleton. The killing intent on his body was earth-shattering. His appearance shocked everyone. The first elder of the White Bone Cave was very powerful. He was almost at the level of the Nine-Crown King. Now that he made a move, he might really be able to kill this detestable kid. Young man, your end is here. The first elder of the White Bone Cave said coldly. After Lin Xian heard this, he smiled. Oh, you want to fight? Judging from your aura, you're not bad. However, I hope you won't disappoint me. You're really arrogant. The first elder of the White Bone Cave snorted coldly. Let me see how you're invincible in the world. As soon as he finished speaking, two red lightning bolts suddenly appeared in his eye sockets. They pierced through the void and charged towards Lin Xian. This attack made the surrounding quasi-emperors tremble in fear. Just a glance was enough to make them unable to withstand it. This first elder of the White Bone Cave was really too powerful. Young man, you really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. The first elder of the White Bone Cave took a step forward. An endless sea of blood enveloped the world. The entire space cracked open. The others retreated one after another. They couldn't withstand this power. Could this brat withstand it? The people of the underworld god hall were worried. However, Lin Xian didn't dodge at all. Looking at the two bolts of lightning that were rushing towards him, he reached out and grabbed, suppressing them. Then he said, "Your strength is only it. Show me your full strength. Otherwise, you're simply not worthy of being my opponent." The first elder furrowed his brows tightly. Although it was only two of his gazes, they could not be suppressed so easily. From the looks of it, this kid was indeed a powerhouse. However, he was, after all, the great elder of the White Bone Cave. He was very powerful. Even among the 8 crown kings, he was invincible. Although he was surprised, he did not panic. His bony palm slapped out, accompanied by a sea of blood that filled the sky. Anything that was enveloped by it would be reduced to bones. The people of White Bone Cave all laughed coldly. They knew that once the great elder was enraged, the other party would definitely die. Lin Xian, on the other hand, had a calm expression. Looking at the incoming sea of blood, he punched out. Like the sun in the sky, it pierced through the entire sea of blood. The terrifying sun spun between heaven and earth, evaporating the seawater. Between the heavens and the earth, the sky was filled with the color of blood. Clouds and mist continued to spread. The surrounding people hurriedly put up their defenses. The White Bone Great Elder frowned again. A casual punch was enough to break his divine ability. This kid's physique was really too strong. Moreover, it was an extremely masculine physique. As expected, he was an outsider. It seems that I really have to show my true strength. Well, I'll let you see it. The endless sea of blood surrounded the first elder, condensing into a blood sword. The Blood Drinker sword. The Blood Drinker princess from before was also used. This divine ability originally belonged to the White Bone Cave. The Blood Drinker princess's sword was worlds apart from the first elder's sword. Now, as soon as the first elder's Blood Drinker sword appeared, all the living beings trembled. In addition to the White Bone Cave, there were also powerhouses from the Yellow Spring sect and the Underworld God Hall. They felt that their chi and blood were about to be absorbed. Just the remaining power of the sword chi was so terrifying. If they were hit by this sword, they would probably die without a doubt. You should be proud to die under the Blood Drinker sword. The white-bone Great Elder's expression was cold. The Blood Drinker sword in his hand emitted a terrifying cold light. At this moment, he seemed to have turned into a god of death. Competing in swordsmanship? Lin Xian smiled. How interesting. Well, I'll let you see my sword Dao. Lin Xian waved his hand and shouted coldly, Sword, come here, buzz. In his sword world, a ray of light cut through the void and came in front of him. It was held by Lin Xian. The surrounding people were shocked. Did Lin Wudi use a weapon? Even the underworld child was surprised. Previously, Lin Wudi's fist swept in all directions. Even when he used a weapon, he used the sky-devouring jar. Other than that, Lin Wudi also knew how to use other weapons. What level was this sword? They all looked carefully, but soon, they were all stunned. That was because this sword was simply too ordinary. It was covered in rust. What was the origin of such a sword? Everyone was puzzled. The people from the White-Bone Cave laughed. Stupid thing, our first elder sword is the Blood Drinker sword, but yours is just an ordinary iron sword. How can you compete with it? The first elder also snorted coldly. Stupid, you're underestimating your opponent. I'll kill you in 3 moves. The first elder was angry. In his opinion, the other party was looking down on him. He couldn't stand it. The battle intent on his body was shocking. He slashed with his sword, and a sea of blood surrounded by sword chi fell from the sky. Lin Xian gripped the iron sword with an emotionless expression. This was not an ordinary sword. This was dug out from the ancient land. It was called the Immortal Slaying Sword. It was a sword left behind by a top swordsman in the God realm. Now, although it looked ordinary, its power was definitely extraordinary. Let them see your strength. Lin Xian held the Immortal Slaying Sword. In the next moment, thunder suddenly sounded between heaven and earth, piercing through the sky. Everyone's soul trembled. They suddenly looked up. What was it? Was a thunder expert here? However, that clap of thunder came so suddenly and disappeared so strangely. There was no clue at all. No one was paying attention. At the same time, Emperor Hades and the Emperor of Yellow Spring, who were fighting in the 9th heaven, were also shocked. They felt a trace of mysterious aura from this power. Was there a peerless expert hiding in the surroundings? And at least at the level of a great emperor? Because the strange phenomenon of heaven and earth just now startled even them. However, the souls of the 2 great emperors swept over, but they didn't find the enemy. Where was he? This caused them to furrow their brows tightly. Even Lin Xian was taken aback by this. However, they soon understood that the sound just now should be made by the Immortal Slaying Sword. It was indeed extraordinary. The corners of his mouth curled up. Let's show them our sword skills. With the sword in his hand, Lin Xian's entire being became fierce. The sword chi on his body soared into the sky, as if it had turned into a peerless sword body. Slash. He slashed out with the sword. It was just an ordinary attack. However, the sword chi that it brought about was really too terrifying. In an instant, heaven and earth were split in half. Boom. An earth-shattering sound was heard, colliding with the Blood Drinker sword chi. The biting cold sword light pierced in all directions. Everyone else became nervous. Were the 2 top swordsmen going to fight each other? They wondered whose sword skills were more powerful. Chapter 57-63. The iron sword was ordinary, but it easily blocked the Blood Drinker sword. Everyone was shocked. The origin of this sword was indeed extraordinary. The Great Elder also frowned. He snorted coldly, and the Blood Drinker sword appeared again, turning into thousands of blood dragons, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, charging over from all directions. The blood dragons were 1,000 meters long, and their dragon scales were very real. It seemed that the Blood Drinker sword had killed a real dragon expert back then. Lin Xian snorted coldly and waved the killing immortal sword continuously. Azura sword technique. This was a fatal sword technique. Every time, a little light lit up. Then, thousands of blood dragons split open between their eyebrows, and their bodies were pierced through. They let out wails and turned into a bloody mist that filled the sky. Lin Xian strode forward again. Wherever he passed, nothing could stop him. Anyone who tried to stop him was split open by his sword. Was that all he had? Again, Lin Xian shouted coldly, "Another sword strike." The white-boned First Elder's face turned extremely ugly. He snorted coldly and swept the blood drinker sword across like an iron chain blocking the river. Boom! It turned into a half-moon arc, and the blood-colored light kept attacking. It was as if the blood-colored moon had descended. This time, not only the sword energy, but the blood drinker sword also rushed over. It carried a bloody aura, which made people tremble before it even got close. However, Lin Xian raised the killing immortal sword to block it. With a clang, the two swords collided, and some of the rust on the killing immortal sword fell off. But it bloomed with a mysterious light. Lin Xian's arm shook. The 9 suns opening the sky, and the killing immortal sword, combined with his peerless sword technique. He forced the Great Elder to retreat. Did this guy actually suppress the Great Elder? The people of the White Bone Cave went crazy. The people of the Yellow Spring sect also exclaimed, "Look, the rust on that sword has fallen off." It actually had such a shocking light. Countless people looked at the killing immortal sword in shock. The origin of this sword was indeed extraordinary. Lin Xian also laughed. Heaven-defying sword technique. 9 suns in the sky. This self-created sword technique was once again displayed by him. Previously, the blood drinker sword swept across like a snowy moon. Lin Xian used the same method to kill his opponent. On the tip of the immortal slaying sword, 9 streaks of sword chi appeared, transforming into 9 suns. They circled around each other and crushed down. How could the light of the bright moon compete with the sun? With a slash of his sword, he charged at the Grand Elder. The white-boned Great Elder roared angrily and used the blood drinker sword to block the attack. An earth-shattering collision sound was heard. He kept retreating, crushing the void. Lin Xian said, "Is this your strength? That's all there is to it. You don't deserve to be my opponent. What other trump cards do you have? Take them all out. Otherwise, the battle would be over." With his sword in hand, Lin Xian was incredibly powerful. The people of the White Bone Cave were almost in despair. When had their Great Elder ever been in such a sorry state? The white-boned Great Elder's face was also gloomy. He said coldly, "Young man, you're playing with fire. Do you know the true power of the blood drinker sword? It's not its sharpness, but the blood of countless experts that it has drunk. This blood has all flowed into the blood drinker sword. When I want to use it, I can summon it. Now, I'll let you see the true power of the blood drinker sword." Roar! The Great Elder sneered, and endless laws condensed on his body. The power of his divine fire seed quickly spread throughout the blood drinker sword. Mysterious runes appeared on it. In the next moment, a blood-colored mist filled the air. Then, 3 behemoths appeared. One of them was an elephant, and its body was covered in fearsome hell battle armor. This was the legendary Hell Demon statue. It was very terrifying. The other one was a 9 netherbird. Its entire body was pitch black, and there were black flames dancing on it. The last one was a figure. It seemed to be an unparalleled expert. His figure was incomparably tall. He had a strong physique and no armor on his body. However, he had 2 giant axes. These 3 figures were all condensed from blood. They stood between heaven and earth, as if they were alive. It made everyone's scalp tingle. The people of the underworld god hall exclaimed, "Hell demon statue, 9 netherbird." These were all from hell. They were a bundle of heaven and earth and were incomparably fierce. It was difficult to see them now. The people of the Yellow Spring sect also exclaimed, "That man can't be the legendary messenger of hell, right? Such a person also died under the blood drinker sword?" The Great Elder said, "Do you see? These powerful existences all died under the blood drinker sword, and their power will be used by me." Now, it was all over. As the blood drinker sword waved, The three experts quickly rushed over. The Hell Demon statue had terrifying power. The Nine Netherbird had terrifying flames. And the Messenger of Hell was incomparably violent, with the power to split open the sky. Even the Nine Crown King would have to temporarily avoid it. This battle was definitely won. The people of the White Bone Cave went crazy, and the people of the Underworld God Hall were in despair. The Blood Drinker Sword was indeed powerful. What a strong power. Lin Xian didn't retreat at all. Facing the three behemoths, he looked up to the sky. Then he smiled. This is what makes my blood boil. He lowered his head and looked at the god-slaying sword in his hand. He said, "You have killed countless experts in the past. These three shouldn't be a problem. Then let me see your power again." Lin Xian didn't use any peerless sword technique. Instead, he held the god-slaying sword and rushed over quickly. It was just an ordinary attack, but under the power of the god-slaying sword, it seemed to have turned into a peerless combat power. Was this kid planning to fight head-on? He was really stupid. The people of the White Bone Cave sneered. Lin Xian, on the other hand, was the first to rush towards the Hell Demon statue like lightning. The god-slaying sword in his hand slashed down. The Hell Demon statue had 4 hooves that could suppress hell. At this moment, once it landed, it could completely suppress Lin Xian. However, after the sword, the 4 hooves were cut off, and the Hell Demon statue fell to the ground. Lin Xian's figure swayed, and the sword wings on his back danced. He charged towards the Nine Netherbird again. This sword was like a flying immortal from outer space. More and more rust fell off the god-slaying sword, and an even more resplendent light bloomed. This sword had killed countless experts of the Nirvana realm back then, and it was famous. Now, it had been discovered by Lin Xian. Finally, it was about to bloom again. One of the 9 Netherbirds' wings was instantly cut off, and it let out a miserable cry. No, how was this possible? The people of the White Bone Cave were crazy. The Great Elder's pupils also shrank. The 3 figures he had summoned were unparalleled powerhouses back in the day. It wasn't easy for the Blood Drinker Sword to kill them. Now that the 3 of them were attacking at the same time, how could this brat possibly withstand their attacks? Moreover, he blocked them so easily. Damn it, there was something wrong with that sword. He realized that the god-slaying sword was no longer rusty. Instead, it had become incomparably mysterious. There was a sparkling light on it that was jumping. What kind of treasure sword was this? Just as he was thinking, the 3rd Hell Demon statue also let out an angry roar. It turned out that Lin Xian had charged over again. Under the god-slaying sword, the other party's arm disappeared. With another sword, the huge body turned into a bloody mist and fell. Was that all he had? Too weak, Lin Xian held the god-slaying sword and looked down from above. Chapter 5764. You actually managed to break through my divine ability. Great Elder Whitebone was really stunned. How could the other party kill 3 strong masters so easily? It was too unbelievable. Your supernatural power? Lin Xiao shook his head. Too weak. I'll let you see the heaven-defying sword. Sword chi surrounded Lin Xian's body. His eyes exploded, and the great dragon's sword soul roared in his body. He used the heaven-defying sword. A phantom also appeared on the immortal killing sword. It was a hazy figure, like a demon. However, it was surrounded by sword chi. It was sent flying by Lin Xian. That figure was extremely terrifying. As soon as it appeared, it pierced through heaven and earth. The people around all went crazy. Why did this move look very similar to the move of the Great Elder's Blood Drinker Sword? Was this the heaven-defying sword? It was indeed heaven-defying. Damn it! The Great Elder roared angrily. Was the other party slapping his face? He also wanted to kill him with a sword. The Blood Drinker Sword erupted and slashed forward. However, the sword shadow was extremely terrifying. The sword chi was like a demon, repelling the Blood Drinker Sword. In an instant, it turned into a frog and jumped over. Its claws slapped on the Great Elder's body. The Great Elder's physique was very strong. He was about to become the 9 Crown King. However, under this attack, he was torn into pieces. What was that? The people of the Yellow Spring sect went crazy. The people of the White Bone Cave were also desperate. How could he be so powerful? Their great elder had been defeated. Furthermore, he had been severely injured. Who exactly was this person? Lin Xian didn't stop after his sword succeeded. Instead, he continued to attack. Another sword strike turned into a sword dragon, roaring at the sky. The terrifying sword edge once again slashed towards the Grand Elder. The skeletal Grand Elder's shattered body was trying to recover. However, it was pierced through by the merciless sword chi and nailed to the void. These sword chi were indestructible. Not only did they destroy his body, but they also destroyed his soul. He let out a miserable cry. Hurry up and stop him. The Great Elder finally couldn't help it. The people of the White Bone Cave roared crazily and charged over. The people of the Yellow Spring sect were also shocked. Was the first elder defeated in a one-on-one battle? From the looks of it, they had to make a move as well. Kill. The Yellow Spring sect also charged over. The two armies covered the sky and covered the earth. The underworld god hall wanted to charge out. A great battle broke out in an instant. On White Bone Cave's side, dozens of experts came to the first elder's side, wanting to save him. However, Lin Xian stepped in the air and said coldly, "Can you save the people I want to kill?" As the immortal slaying sword slashed down, dozens of figures were split in half. However, even more experts from the White Bone Cave rushed over. They would never allow the first elder to die. Lin Xian snorted coldly, "Heaven and earth as the sword. All things as the sword, kill." The weapons in the hands of these people turned into sharp sword lights that slashed out in all directions. Not good. He can control my weapon. Damn it. That stone had actually turned into a peerless killing sword. Pay attention to that leaf. Countless cries of astonishment could be heard. At this moment, it seemed to have turned into a world of sword Dao. Lin Xian was like the dominating sword god. Wherever he passed, the sword cut through heaven and earth. The White Bone Grand Elder kept retreating. However, he discovered that Lin Xian had sealed off his path of retreat with a single step. The biting cold sword chi made his hair stand on end. "Who are you?" the first elder asked in horror. "My name is Lin Wudi. With me around, you can go to hell." Lin Xian swung the immortal slaying sword again. The sword directly killed the first elder, and the broken bones scattered all over the ground. The first elder had died. The people from the White Bone Cave had all gone crazy. They wanted to avenge the first elder, so they all rushed over. However, under the heaven and earth sword formation, they quickly panicked and wanted to escape. Lin Xian would not give these people a chance. Since these people came to kill him, they had to bear the brunt of his anger. Under the sword chi, they would be destroyed. No, how could this guy be so powerful? The experts of the Yellow Spring sect were also falling. They had all gone crazy. In the blink of an eye, half of them had died under his sword chi. Who could defeat this person? In the sky, when the Yellow Spring Emperor sensed this scene, he frowned. Is this Lin Wudi? He was indeed powerful. He slapped down with his palm, which transformed into the palm of the underworld and charged toward Lin Xian. "Oh no, retreat quickly." Underworld Child and the others retreated frantically. At the same time, they shouted, "Lin Gongzi, dodge quickly. That is the power of the great emperor." Lin Xian sensed it immediately. His expression changed drastically, and he used the sky-devouring jar to block it. With a clang, he entered the sky-devouring jar and was sent flying, his blood boiling. At the same time, he looked up at the sky. "Yellow Spring Emperor, I will destroy your Yellow Spring sect completely." He crazily attacked the experts of the Yellow Spring sect. Heaven-defying sword, heaven and earth sword intent, Azura sword technique. Except for the illusion demon scripture, which Lin Xian did not use. He used all the other divine abilities one by one. Soul power, Rinnegan, 6 paths of reincarnation. Between heaven and earth, the experts of the Yellow Spring sect held their heads and screamed. In the end, the sword pierced through their glabella. The rust on the immortal slaying sword became less and less. As it was used, it became extremely sharp. Boy, how dare you! The Yellow Spring Emperor in the sky had gone crazy. This guy was even more unscrupulous in killing his disciples. He couldn't stand it and punched out again. Lin Xian hid in the sky-devouring jar and dodged the attack again. However, a trace of blood flowed down from the corner of his mouth. The attack of the great emperor was absolutely terrifying. Lin Xian roared to the sky. Underworld Emperor, stop him for me. I want to kill all the people of the Yellow Spring sect. In the next moment, Lin Xian completely exploded. Tens of thousands of streams of sword chi were continuously activated. It was a disaster for the Yellow Spring sect, because no one was a match for Lin Xian. In fact, those quasi-emperors couldn't even block Lin Xian's sword. Quickly join forces. The elders of the Yellow Spring sect roared crazily. They joined forces, took out the Yellow Spring flag, and swept across heaven and earth. There were thousands of Yellow Spring shields surrounding them. However, they were all split apart by the sword. When the immortal slaying sword fell, some of the others said, "Good opportunity, attack him." In Lin Xian's eyes, the light of reincarnation appeared. The reincarnation sword. Between heaven and earth, a sword shadow slashed down from the sky. In an instant, a large number of Yellow Spring sect expert souls were harvested. Damn it, the Yellow Spring Emperor had gone crazy. Now, only less than half of the people of the Yellow Spring sect were left. His heart was bleeding. He wanted to note here that it was indeed him who stopped him. Do you really think I don't exist? Motionless, underworld god. He formed a seal with his palms and cast a terrifying divine ability. Get lost. The Yellow Spring Emperor roared. The water of the Yellow Spring turned into the Tao of the Yellow Spring, dancing between heaven and earth. The two great emperors fought earth-shattering. For a moment, they couldn't leave at all. After a while, the final scream rang out, and all of the Yellow Spring sect members were dead. The people of the White Bone Cave were so scared that their scalps went numb. The people of the Underworld God Hall were also stunned. Most of them were killed by Lin Xian. His sword was too sharp. He could take away a group of experts with a single sword. Even the Eight-Crowned King couldn't suppress him. Who could compete with him? A sea of blood dyed the sky. Lin Xian stood there, and the sword chi on his body opened up a space. Like a sword god, he looked at the 9 heavens. He said coldly, "Yellow Spring Emperor, look at your sect. There's no one left. This is the consequence of attacking me." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.